Chapter 187. Wei Shuyan's eyes flashed coldly. Murong Yu was actually so familiar with the Heavenly Spirit sect? Could it be? She instantly thought of a possibility. The sect master of the Heavenly Spirit sect was only at the form synthesis stage. With Murong Yu's strength, it was more than enough for him to destroy a small sect. After all, Murong Yu had so many treasures that even Zhushenzong dared to betray him. However, what Wei Shuyan cared about was not whether the Heavenly Spirit sect had been destroyed, but the spirit vein of the Heavenly Spirit sect. If Murong Yu had really uprooted the Heavenly Spirit sect, then the spirit vein must have been taken away by Murong Yu. It was a spirit vein, and a spirit vein that was not inferior to the third grade. What did this mean? For a moment, Wei Shuyan's heart was burning with passion. Although she was now an elder of the Tianyin sect, and had a lot of power, she was still a pauper. If she could obtain a spirit vein, then she could enter the transformation stage and even become an immortal. At this moment, the way Wei Shuyan looked at Murong Yu changed. She looked at him as if he was a pauper looking at a pile of gold bricks in front of her. Although the Heavenly Spirit sect is a subsidiary sect of the Sky Expanse sect, the Sky Expanse sect doesn't meddle in their affairs. If my guess is correct, the reason why the Heavenly Spirit sect was annihilated was because they secretly hid the spirit vein. As Wei Shuyan spoke, she observed Murong Yu. Unfortunately, Murong Yu's expression didn't change at all. So, you don't know that the Heavenly Spirit sect attacked the secular families and kidnapped their children? Murong Yu looked at Wei Shuyan with bright eyes. Wei Shuyan frowned slightly. Is there such a thing? Looking at Wei Shuyan's expression, Murong Yu felt that she was not lying, so he couldn't help but feel relieved. He was afraid that this was related to the Tianyin sect. If that was the case, he would have to reconsider whether to take Li Feng and the other way. Did you destroy the Heavenly Spirit sect? Did you take the spirit vein of the Heavenly Spirit sect? Wei Shuyan suddenly asked. The Heavenly Spirit sect attacked the families of the secular world, kidnapped countless children, and forcibly broke apart countless families. They deserve to die. However, the matter of spirit veins is a pleasant surprise, Murong Yu said with a smile. He didn't try to hide anything. So if they found out, could they do anything to him? Spiritual vein. Hearing Murong Yu admitted himself, Wei Shuyan, even Murong Dan and Murong Hao's faces changed. Murong Yu, the Heavenly Spirit sect, is a subsidiary sect of the Sky Expanse sect. Their things also belong to the Sky Expanse sect, including the spirit vein. Hurry up and hand over the spirit vein to us. Otherwise, you'll be hunted down by the Heaven Expanse sect. At this moment, Murong Dan jumped out and looked at Murong Yu with a sinister expression. Idiot. Murong Yu snorted and looked at Murong Dan as if he was looking an idiot. Why is this bastard becoming more and more idiotic? I really wonder if Murong Hao is your son. How could an idiot like you give birth to him? Murong Yu said with a sneer. Murong Hao used to be the genius of the Murong family. You're courting death. Murong Dan suddenly flew into a rage. Perhaps because of his relationship with Wei Shuyan, he roared and a sword light tore out from his body and shot towards Murong Yu. Sneak attack. Murong Yu didn't care about this. Before the flying sword arrived in front of him, he slowly raised his right hand. Then, in a split second, he grabbed the high-grade flying sword. With a woman as an elder, the treatment was indeed different. She was only at the foundation establishment stage, but she already had a high-grade magic weapon. Kacha! Murong Yu used a little force, and the flying sword in his hand made an unpleasant sound. In front of the shocked eyes of Murong Dan and the others, the high-grade magic weapon flying sword was grabbed by Murong Yu and turned into a pile of scrap iron. Then, Murong Yu gently rubbed, and this valuable high-grade magic weapon turned into a pile of powder and fell from the crack between him. Puff! With the flying sword destroyed, Murong Dan's mind was immediately damaged, and he fiercely spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Murong Yu with a frightened look. That was a high-grade magic weapon, not an ordinary weapon made of iron. Murong Yu had crushed it into powder with a single rub. Wasn't this a little too shocking? Even Wei Shuyan's face showed a shocked look. With her strength, Destroying a high-grade magic weapon was no problem at all. But it was impossible for Murong Yu to destroy it with his bare hands. It was even more impossible for him to crush it into powder. How strong would his physical body be to be able to do that? At this moment, Wei Shuiyan became extremely serious. She knew that Murong Yu was a strong opponent. If they underestimated him today, then the three of them might really be killed by him today. Wei Shuiyan looked at Murong Yu and said in a cold voice, "Hand over the spirit vein and follow us back to the Sky Expanse sect. Perhaps I will plead for mercy on behalf of the Sky Expanse sect and let you go." I still have the same words. If you dare to attack me today, then the three of you will definitely die. I will not show mercy just because we have the same surname, Murong. Murong Yu's aura gradually became stronger. Gotcha. Human, if you want to fight, then fight. Why are you dawdling? Kid, I'll do you a favor and kill them. Just as Wei Shuiyan was about to attack, an arrogant and fierce voice came from nearby. Whoosh. At this moment, a figure rushed out from behind Wei Shuiyan like a stream of light. Ah! Murong Dan let out a blood-curdling scream, and his entire body was already flying high into the air. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. From the voice to the person who appeared to provoke Murong Dan, it was only an instant. The unforeseen event happened so quickly that Murong Yu did not even have time to react. You're courting death. Wei Shuiyan shouted angrily. She stretched out her hand and attacked the stream of light in the air. Murong Hao stepped on his flying sword and flew into the air to catch Murong Dan in the air. Murong Dan is finished. Murong Yu stood still on the spot. Anyway, he was not the one who attacked, so he had to watch the show. However, when he glanced at Murong Dan, he realized that this person was finished. At this moment, a huge wound had appeared on the left side of Murong Dan's chest. The inside of the wound was empty. Murong Dan's heart had disappeared. In other words, in the attack, just now, it had been taken away by the attacker. With Murong Dan's strength, without a heart, he would die without a doubt. Therefore, when he was still in the air, he had already stopped breathing. Father! Seeing this scene, Murong Hao was scared out of his wits. Then he roared, "Mother, father has been killed. He is dead." On the other side, Wei Shuiyan was fighting with the attacker. The terrifying aura continued to erupt, shattering the mountains and breaking the void. It was very terrifying. After hearing Murong Hao's roar, the anger in Wei Shuiyan's heart burned like a torrential river. Although she did not have much feelings for Murong Dan, he was her man after all. Now he was killed in front of her. Wei Shuiyan was very angry. She shouted coldly and immediately raised her strength to the limit. She launched a fierce attack on the attacker. Under Wei Shuiyan's fierce attack, the attacker suddenly fell into a state of weakness and fell into a disadvantageous position. At this time, Murong Yu finally saw the appearance of this guy. This was a young man in his 20s. However, although this person looked like a human, there was a fierce aura coming from his body. His strength should be around the form synthesis stage. However, the young man's speed was extremely fast. His body was like a green light as he moved. Most importantly, the fierce and bloody aura coming from his body was different. Demonic beast. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Murong Yu was familiar with the aura of the young man. When he was in the Demon Mountain, he was chased by many demonic beasts. In addition to the words of this demonic beast just now, he had confirmed his identity. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Weren't the demonic beasts in the Demon Mountain unable to leave the Demon Mountain? Why would there be a demonic beast here? And its strength seemed to be quite good. Rumble. Under Wei Shuiyan's fury, the demonic beast who was only in the form synthesis stage was no match for her. If it wasn't for his extraordinary speed, he would have been killed by Wei Shuiyan. Even so, the young man didn't have it easy. He dodged Wei Shuiyan's attacks many times and was almost killed by her. Kid, I help you kill someone. Shouldn't you help me? The young man suddenly said loudly. He actually wanted Murong Yu's help. I didn't ask you for help. Murong Yu said indifferently. Even if both of them died, it had nothing to do with him. He was just here to watch the show. The demonic beasts of the Demon Mountain have left the Demon Mountain and come out. Is the cultivation world going to be in chaos? Morong Yu muttered to himself. However, it didn't matter. As long as these demonic beasts didn't provoke him, it had nothing to do with him. However, the demonic beasts that hadn't come out for many years were now coming out. Something unusual was bound to happen in the cultivation world. It seems like I have to strengthen Hun Dun as soon as possible. Morong Yu thought. Bang! Although the young man's speed was extraordinary, Wei Shuyan's cultivation of the crossing calamity stage was not to be underestimated. Finally, Wei Shuyan caught a flaw in him and sent him flying with a palm. You evil woman, your grandfather will come back for revenge. Unable to defeat her, the young man took the opportunity to escape. Before he left, a resentful voice came from afar. Kid, I will remember you. I will deal with you in the future. Where are you going? Wei Shuyan shouted angrily and quickly chased after him with teleportation. Morong Hao, on the other hand, was hugging Morong Dan's corpse and wailing. Morong Yu's body swayed. He used the army formula and turned into a stream of light to chase after him. Morong Yu increased his speed to the limit and quickly chased after Wei Shuyan. It didn't take long for him to catch up with her. At this time, he didn't see the young man again. On the contrary, Wei Shuyan was attacking the huge green bat that was escaping quickly in front of her. She wanted to kill it. That huge green bat should be the true body of that young man. Chapter 188. So it's a bat. No wonder it's so fast. Morong Yu was enlightened when he saw the young man's true form. Bats were fast to begin with, not to mention that this was a bat demon cultivator. However, although the bat demon was strong, it was no match for Wei Shuyan, who was in the crossing calamity stage. Although it was fast, it was still injured by Wei Shuyan's attacks. From afar, there were a few ghastly wounds on the green bat's body, and blood was flowing out. At this moment, the green bat was crying out in a weird way. Morong Yu didn't make any moves in response to this. He merely executed the soldier formula and chased after them. What did the battle in front of him have to do with him? The green bat killed Wei Shuyan's man, so it naturally had to bear Wei Shuyan's wrath. First move of the Heaven Amplification Divine Skill. Wei Shuyan suddenly shouted, and then a strong light burst out from her hand. In the next moment, a terrifying power spread out in all directions with her body as the center. It was extremely terrifying. The glaring light shot up to the sky and locked onto the green bat, enveloping it. The green bat cried out in a weird way. Bang! A ball of green light exploded from its body. Whoosh! Under the cover of the green light, the green bat suddenly sped up and traveled dozens of miles away. Bang! Just as the green bat sped up and left, the strong light had already exploded at the place where he was originally standing. At this moment, the light of the sun in the sky seemed to be suppressed by the strong light. There was only this terrifying light in the sky and on the ground. A terrifying impact burst out. Chi-chi, the surrounding void, was like a piece of paper. Under this terrifying light, a ghastly crack was directly torn open. As for the ground beneath the void, the mountains within a radius of a few hundred miles were directly flattened. However, the green bat that was enveloped by the green light had already escaped thousands of miles away, just in time to avoid the attack. Whoosh! Morong Yu executed the troop formula and dodged the attack with a sway of his body. At this moment, there was a trace of shock in his eyes. The Heaven Amplification Divine Skill was the ultimate skill of the Heaven Amplification sect. Its power was extremely terrifying. He did not expect Wei Shuyan to be able to cultivate as well. In reality, what Morong Yu did not know was that the Sky Amplification sect did not restrict the cultivation of the Heaven Amplification Divine Technique. Even a Foundation Establishment cultivator could practice this technique. Of course, he could only cultivate a portion of the moves of this ultimate skill. There were a total of 7 forms of the Heaven Amplification Divine Technique, and ordinary disciples could only cultivate the first 3 forms. As for the last 4 styles, only disciples who had made great contributions to the Sky Expanse sect could learn them. However, only the sect leader could cultivate all 7 forms. Furthermore, even if he had cultivated the Heaven Amplification Divine skill, it was not something that an ordinary person could use. For example, Wei Shuiyin, who was in the crossing tribulation stage, was panting heavily after using the first form of the Heavenly Amplification Divine technique. However, even after using the first form of the Heaven Amplification Divine technique, Wei Shuiyin was still unable to kill the green bat. The furious Wei Shuiyin would never let the green bat leave. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He teleported and chased after them again. Murong Yu also chased after him. The green bat's speed was much slower than before, and he looked a little dispirited. Perhaps it was because he had used up a lot of energy when he suddenly increased his speed. With Wei Shuiyin's continuous teleportation, she quickly caught up with him. The second form of the Heaven Amplification Divine technique. Wei Shuiyin shouted angrily and used the second form of the Heaven Amplification Divine technique. It was not much different from the first form, but its power was much more terrifying. The earth-shattering and heaven-shaking aura shocked Murong Yu. Boom! Under the effect of the terrifying light, the void was torn apart, and the sky shook. It had the power to destroy the world. A large white hand suddenly reached out from the 9 heavens, smashing the void. With a destructive aura, it grabbed at the green bat that was escaping quickly. At this moment, the green bat was filled with regret. If he had known, he would not have been so itchy to kill that human. He was really unlucky to have offended this evil woman. After all, the difference in their cultivation levels was obvious. He had used his innate speed to avoid her attacks many times. However, the Heaven Amplification Divine technique was really terrifying. When he used the first form, he had already given his all. He did not hesitate to burn his essence blood to increase his speed. Although he had temporarily avoided the attack, he had also become much more dispirited. This was not the most fatal thing. The most terrifying thing was that this evil woman had a second form. Feeling the large hand grabbing at him from the void, the green bat was about to cry, and his eyes were filled with fear. This large hand was at least a few times more terrifying than the previous light. He had used all his strength to barely avoid the previous form, but now, the green bat's eyes were filled with fear and despair. He had nowhere to run now. Once the large hand grabbed him, he would definitely die. However, the surrounding void seemed to have been sealed by the large hand, and he could not use his speed at all. There was no way for him to escape. This cyan bat is done for. This thought flashed through Murong Yu's mind when he saw this scene. Even if he faced this move, he would not be able to block it. Poof, poof, poof. The large hand quickly pressed down, and everywhere it passed, the void was constantly crushed into powder. Before the large hand could land, the green bat was suppressed by the terrifying power and coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. The wounds on his body were also constantly spurting out blood. Most likely, before the green bat could be crushed by the giant hand, it would have been crushed by the terrifying pressure emanating from the giant hand. What a pity! Murong Yu sighed regretfully. He originally wanted to ask the green bat if all the demon beasts on the demon mountain had been born. However, it seemed that it was impossible now. Seeing that the green bat was about to explode and die, Murong Yu was about to turn and leave. At this moment, something strange happened. Bang! All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying aura burst out from the cyan bat. This aura was even stronger than that of the giant hand in the void. This is at least the aura of a transformation stage cultivator. Murong Yu's expression suddenly changed. He had felt this aura before. It was from the old man who had attacked him when he betrayed Zushinzong. One-step immortal. Murong Yu did not know that the person who had attacked him that day was a one-step immortal, the master of Zushinzong's sect leader Zhuang Ningguang. Zhang Jing. If Murong Yu had not escaped to the Hichu Luoshu world earlier, he would have been killed by Zhang Jing. At this moment, this was the second time Murong Yu had encountered such a terrifying aura. A one-step immortal had attacked. Murong Yu's expression instantly became very ugly. This aura was too powerful and terrifying. It made him feel uneasy and even had the aura of death. Yes, it was the aura of death. Murong Yu was not even afraid of the heavenly tribulation, but he felt the aura of death from here. One could imagine how terrifying this aura was. At this moment, the void above the green bat's head split open, and a figure stepped out of the void. It was a skinny old man in green clothes. He was skinny, and his skin was like an air-dried orange peel. One of his feet was already in the coffin. However, the aura that made Murong Yu feel uneasy and even the aura of death came from this old man. Seeing this scene, the three of them were stunned. Yes, even a green bat was stunned. "Grandpa, they want to kill me." However, after the shock, the green bat immediately reacted and then looked at Murong Yu and Zhang Jing with resentment. This old man who had one foot in the coffin was actually the green bat's grandpa. This was going to be fun. Murong Yu thought to himself that this was not good, and his body had already begun to shoot backward. Seeing the shocking wounds on the green bat's body, the old man was instantly furious. Then, a terrifying, murderous intent spread out. He slowly stretched out his withered hand and then pointed out with a finger. Bang! A ray of green light flashed and disappeared. Then, the huge hand in the void suddenly exploded. It was actually so weak that the old man didn't even make a move. After shattering the huge hand, the old man's gaze swept across billions of space-time and finally fixed on Murong Yu, who was shooting into the distance. Murong Yu, who was running away quickly, was swept by the gaze. Suddenly, he couldn't help but shiver, and an extremely cold feeling instantly spread throughout his body. A bad feeling rose in Murong Yu's heart. This old man couldn't have set his sights on me, right? That's too unfair. I didn't make a move from the beginning to the end. The old man's withered hand, that was like a dead tree, slowly stretched out. It was trembling, as if it was strenuous to move forward even a little. However, this seemingly slow movement was paradoxically extremely fast. With a swoosh, the withered hand that was like a dead tree had already torn through billions of space-time barriers and quickly grabbed at Murong Yu. Damn it, I'm just here to watch the show. Murong Yu didn't even need to look to know that the old man had already made a move on him. At this time, Murong Yu wanted to slap himself hard. Who told you to watch the show? See, you've seen through me this time. However, Murong Yu didn't have time to slap himself. Running for his life was more important. He instantly raised his strength to the extreme. Using the troop formula under his feet, he turned into a stream of light and shot forward quickly. However, the trembling hand behind him, which was like a withered tree, was rapidly approaching him. The speed that Murong Yu was so proud of was useless in front of this old man. Damn it, I'll fight it out with you. Murong Yu felt the aura of death getting stronger and stronger. He knew that if he was caught by this old man, he would definitely die. Therefore, he couldn't help but roar. At the same time, a large number of tribulation clouds began to condense in the void. Rumble. Chapter 189. While Murong Yu was fleeing, the sky above the void was shrouded by layers of thick tribulation clouds. These tribulation clouds were the tribulation thunder that Murong Yu had summoned. At the same time, Murong Yu's body was covered with the power of the tribulation thunder. The black lightning enveloped Murong Yu's entire body, making him look like a ball of lightning. Heavenly tribulation destruction. Murong Yu roared. Suddenly, the tribulation clouds above the void exploded with dazzling light. Then, the balls of lightning tore the tribulation clouds apart and shrouded the heavens and earth. With the power to destroy the world, they shattered the void and shrouded down. Heavenly tribulation. Seeing this scene, everyone except Murong Yu was shocked. In particular, the old man had a look of shock on his face. Humph! The old man coldly snorted. With a flip of his hand, he temporarily gave up on attacking Murong Yu. Instead, his hand rapidly enlarged and fiercely slapped at the descending tribulation lightning. The old man wanted to use his own strength to fight against the tribulation thunder. If he was not crazy, then he had absolute confidence in himself. Morong did not stop. He continued to fly forward at his fastest speed. He didn't think that the old man was crazy. The aura of death that made him feel was not fake. It was real. In an instant, the two sides collided violently. After an earth-shattering explosion, the old man's hand, which was like a withered tree, was instantly smashed into pieces by the tribulation thunder. The tribulation lightning that filled the sky dimmed a little as well. That was the tribulation thunder. The old man had almost smashed it into pieces with his palm. One could imagine how terrifying his strength was. After his hand was smashed, the old man looked disdainful. He snorted and stretched out his hand again. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion. Under the old man's terrifying attack, the tribulation thunder in the sky was smashed into pieces. Break it! After dispersing a round of tribulation thunder, the old man roared angrily again. His big hand met the attack and slammed heavily on the tribulation clouds that filled the sky. Terrifying power erupted, crazily enveloping the world. Under the effect of this terrifying power, the void was torn apart like a piece of paper. Even the tribulation clouds in the sky were smashed to pieces. It could even scatter the tribulation clouds. This old man's strength was actually so terrifying. What Morong didn't know was that this old man was a first-step immortal. It was a terrifying existence that was only one step away from appearing. Moreover, although Morong could summon tribulation lightning, his power was still weak. The tribulation lightning he summoned was not as powerful as the real heavenly tribulation. Otherwise, so what if he was a one-step immortal? They could only be annihilated by the tribulation lightning. One must know that the tribulation lightning was the most terrifying offensive power in the world. However, although he had shattered the tribulation lightning, the old man was clearly not in a good condition. The aura on his body was much weaker than before. It could even be said that the old man had made Morong feel the aura of death. But now, it only made Morong feel a sense of danger. Why is the difference so big? Morong was puzzled. With the old man's strength, even if he was injured, he could easily crush him. But now, the situation was too strange. The old man's strength seemed to have decreased by half in a short time. Suddenly, a light flashed in Morong's heart. Could it be? Thinking of this possibility, Morong's eyes flashed with a terrifying light. This old man wanted to kill him without asking for a reason, which made Morong very angry. If Morong had really attacked the green bat, it would be fine. He couldn't blame the old man for chasing him. But now, Morong clearly didn't attack. This made Morong very angry. Moreover, the old man's strength made Morong very uneasy. Even if it's not your real body, I'll still destroy you. Morong, who was escaping quickly, suddenly turned around and stopped running. Heavenly tribulation annihilation. Morong's throat exploded with a dull roar. The tribulation thunder that had been scattered earlier appeared out of thin air again. And it was even more terrifying than the tribulation thunder that Morong had summoned earlier. The void within 1,000 miles was covered by endless tribulation clouds. It could be said to cover the sky and the sun and moon were dark, and the endless pressure from the tribulation clouds was even more intimidating. It made people's hearts and souls tremble. It was very terrifying, seeing the tribulation clouds appear again, and it was even more terrifying than before. The faces of the three people who were shrouded by the tribulation clouds turned gloomy, especially the old man, because most of the terrifying pressure from the tribulation clouds was directed at him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When the old man appeared, Wei Shuiyan felt that something was wrong. She had already used teleportation to escape into the distance. Revenge for her husband's murder was a threat after her life was threatened. She had to escape first. Therefore, now, after expending a lot of energy to constantly teleport, she finally escaped from the tribulation clouds. But she didn't stop. Instead, she continued to fly into the distance. Escape. Escape as far as possible. This was Wei Shuiyan's thought. At this time, an E-city and even a small part of the great Xia dynasty felt the terrifying aura of the tribulation thunder. And in the direction of the tribulation clouds, the sky was even more gloomy. Was it the end of the world? For a moment, the people in the secular world were in a panic, thinking that the end of the world had come. Fortunately, Murong Yu and the others were in the depths of the pillar of heaven's mountains. Otherwise, the terrifying pressure from the tribulation clouds alone would be enough to kill countless mortals. Looking at the extremely dense tribulation clouds in the void, the green bat's face turned ashen. But fortunately, his grandfather was here, so he looked at his grandfather with hopeful eyes. One of the kings of the Demon Mountain, the Green Bat King. The Green Bat firmly believed that as long as his grandfather was here, these tribulations were nothing. At this time, the Green Bat King's face was terrifyingly gloomy, and his small eyes flickered with a very dangerous aura. Yes, he was the Green Bat King and a one-step immortal, but that was his true body. Now, he was just a strand of divine consciousness. Although it seemed easy to destroy the tribulation with a raise of his hand, it had consumed a part of his divine consciousness power. And this tribulation was even more terrifying than the ones before. He couldn't resist at all. The Green Bat King was furious and aggrieved. He, a one-step immortal, had been killed by a tribulation like this, even though it was just a strand of his divine consciousness. One had to know that a strand of his divine consciousness had the strength of a transformation stage cultivator. It could easily kill a transformation stage cultivator. If this was his true body, even if he couldn't defeat these tribulations, he could still take the Green Bat and leave. But now, whether or not he could save the Green Bat was still a problem. It's all that goddamn brat's fault. The Green Bat King looked at Murong Yu with resentment in his eyes. That brat was also in the tribulation clouds, but he was completely fine. The Green Bat King couldn't help but suspect that these tribulations were caused by Murong Yu. Although the Green Bat King was shocked that Murong Yu could control the tribulation, so what? He'd already put Murong Yu on his must-kill list. Even though Murong Yu was only a spirit tranquil junior. All that had happened in the blink of an eye. Rumble. After today's loud noise, the sky was suddenly filled with tribulation lightning. The terrifying might of the tribulation was enough to destroy heaven and earth, making one's heart tremble. The Green Bat King snorted and reached out with his withered hand, slapping at the tribulation lightning that came crashing down from the sky. The two forces collided violently, exploding with a terrifying impact. Even the Green Bat King's hand and the tribulation lightning in the sky were shattered by the terrifying impact. This attack had consumed most of the Green Bat King's strength. At this moment, the Green Bat King's presence immediately became extremely weak. Even his figure had dimmed significantly. If this happened a few more times, they'd be killed by the tribulation. Beat a drowning dog. Murong Yu seethed with killing intent as he controlled the tribulation clouds to release a second wave of tribulation lightning, then a third and a fourth. The sky was filled with tribulation lightning in the blink of an eye. It was as if heaven and earth no longer existed, leaving behind only a world of lightning and thunder. Waves of terrifying auras spread out, shaking the heavens and the myriad worlds. Under the terrifying bombardment of the tribulation lightning, the Green Bat King, who was only a strand of divine sense, let out a furious roar. In the end, it couldn't withstand Murong Yu's bombardment and was shattered into pieces. Whoosh! A streak of blue light shot out of the tribulation lightning and tore through the void with terrifying speed, shooting off into the distance. When Murong Yu was about to give chase, he sighed with resignation. That was the Blue Bat. Although Murong Yu had destroyed the Green Bat King's consciousness, it was clear that the terrifying existence had some sort of method that allowed the Blue Bat to escape from the tribulation lightning. Murong Yu's plan to exterminate the Green Bat King was foiled. The tribulation lightning gradually dissipated, but Murong Yu's face was pale. Controlling such a large area of tribulation lightning had taken a lot out of him and left him mentally exhausted. Otherwise, given Murong Yu's personality, he would have chased after the blue bat all the way. He wouldn't stop until he'd killed it. I'm still too weak, Morong Yu sighed inwardly. He didn't have the strength to fight back against an existence like the Greenback King. He was just an ant. Now that he'd provoked an existence like the Greenback King, Morong Yu was a little worried when he recalled the venomous gaze the latter had shot him. What are you afraid of? If I can kill a strand of his consciousness, I dare kill his true self too. It's not my style to be afraid of the slightest thing, Morong Yu suddenly said viciously. The cultivation world was so vast that the chances of encountering the Greenback King were slim. Besides, so what if he couldn't beat him? Running away was not a problem. With a flash, Morong Yu disappeared on the spot and entered the Hichu Luoshu world. Not long after, a figure flew over from afar and landed on the ground. Chapter 190. The enmity between him and the Greenback King had been settled. However, Morong Yu wasn't worried at all. After recuperating in Hichu Luoshu, he returned to the Li family. At this time, Morong's family's happy occasion had already turned into a funeral. Morong Dan was a direct descendant of Morong's family, and he was also a cultivator. In the next few days, Morong's family held a very grand funeral for Morong Dan. However, Morong Yu didn't participate. Attending the funeral of his enemy? Wasn't this a joke? Morong Yu wasn't a pervert. After hurriedly settling Morong Dan's funeral, Wei Shuiyin and Morong Hao rushed back to the Tianyin sect that very night. They had completely forgotten about the enmity between her husband and son, and even the fact that Morong Yu had a spirit vein. In fact, how could Wei Shuiyin not want to kill Morong Yu to avenge Morong Ji? Moreover, Morong Yu had an immortal artifact and a spirit vein. However, after seeing Morong Yu's power to control the tribulation lightning, Wei Shuiyin decided to retreat. Although she was in the tribulation passing stage and had a powerful cultivation, she was definitely not Morong Yu's opponent. If she had to kill Morong Yu, she might have been killed by Morong Yu instead. Moreover, she had provoked a pervert like the Greenback King. In the end, Wei Shuiyin reluctantly rushed back to the Tianyin sect and reported this matter to the sect. Although this matter was handed over to the sect, and Morong Yu's things basically had nothing to do with her, the sect would still reward her, wouldn't it? Morong Yu didn't care about this at all. He was only helping Li Feng's family to build their foundation. At the same time, the chaos people that Morong Yu had sent out to find disciples had also gained a lot. In just this period of time, with the efforts of Yang Man and the others, there were already 1,000 new members in the Hichu Luoshu. These were all homeless children who had wandered about outside, and all of them had decent aptitudes. Most importantly, these people were all girls. 1,000. This was not Morong Yu's goal. Now that Morong Yu had obtained a grade 4 spirit vein, he had enough resources to provide for these people's daily expenses. Therefore, Morong Yu's target was 100,000. With 100,000 members divided into 4 groups, there would only be 25,000 combat teams. Compared to those large sects with hundreds of thousands of disciples, the forces of chaos did not have any advantage. However, Morong Yu's advantage was not in quantity, but in quality. As the saying goes, quality is more important than quantity. There were hundreds of thousands of disciples in the top 10 sects, but how many of them had reached the form synthesis stage? Only a very small number of cultivators could reach this realm. The rest of the cultivators were all in different realms, with a mix of good and bad. If all 100,000 members of Morong Yu's army reached the pinnacle of the form synthesis stage, they would definitely be more powerful than the 10 sections. It was just that the top sects were still incomparable. These people were handed over to Hichu, who had nothing to do all day, to manage and teach them various techniques. As for Yang Man and the rest, they were still looking for talented disciples in the secular world. In the secular world, whether it was a prosperous and stable empire or a war-torn country, there was never a lack of homeless children in these countries. Therefore, even though Yang Man and the rest were careful and did not take away too many people in the same area, there were more and more people in Hichu Luoshu, and the chaos was getting stronger and stronger. During this process, the cultivation world had undergone earth-shaking changes. The demonic beasts that had been sealed in the Demon Mountain for countless years began to emerge in large numbers. In just a short month, these demonic beasts appeared in various parts of the cultivation world. The Demon Mountain had been sealed for countless years, and most of these demonic beasts had not even taken half a step out of the Demon Mountain in their entire lives. They did not fit in with the outside cultivation world. The most important thing was that these demonic beasts had experienced all kinds of killing in the Demon Mountain every day, and they had all kinds of blood types. Furthermore, demonic beasts were originally bloodthirsty and were extremely impulsive. They would often draw their swords at the slightest disagreement. In addition, they were obviously not human, and they were extremely hostile toward each other. In the end, within a month after the demonic beasts emerged, the cultivation world became more chaotic and cruel than before, and there were more battles every day. In the beginning, as long as they saw a demonic beast, the cultivators would shout and beat them up. These demonic beasts were not easy to deal with either. The reason why they did not shout and beat up the humans when they saw them was because they were far inferior in numbers. However, once they were attacked, these demonic beasts would draw their swords and fight. What made the cultivators fearful was that these demonic beasts were very powerful. The first batch of demonic beasts that left the Demon Mountain were, of course, elites and were very powerful. However, this was not what made the cultivators fearful. Speaking of which, there was no lack of cultivators with higher realms in the cultivation world. However, in the same realm, cultivators were often not a match for demonic beasts. In the same realm, demonic beasts were often much stronger than human cultivators. This was very obvious. The physical bodies of demonic beasts were innately much stronger than the physical bodies of humans. Moreover, they had killed their way through the Demon Mountain, and each of them had incomparably rich combat experience. As for human cultivators, relatively speaking, their combat experience was not so rich. Therefore, in comparison, human cultivators were inferior to demonic beasts. However, there were always accidents. Just as the demonic beasts were mocking the humans for being weak, the elite disciples of the various sects came out one after another. These elite disciples were very powerful in terms of cultivation and other aspects. Some of them even suppressed demonic beasts that were stronger than them. Fight, fight, or fight. In a short 2 months, the elites of the various sects of the human race continued to come out and fight with the demonic beasts. There were casualties on both sides, and the entire cultivation world was filled with bloodshed. However, whether it was the demonic beasts or the human cultivators, no matter how powerful they were, they did not affect the secular world. Otherwise, the secular world would have long been destroyed by their terrifying destructive power. Very good. From now on, you have the ability to protect yourselves. After 2 months of continuous foundation building and using the sky-breaking pill, Murong Yu raised Li Feng's strength to the out-of-body stage. In addition, Haning was promoted to the heartbeat stage, and Li Guo was only promoted to the fusion stage because he was too young. Of course, this was because their aptitudes were not very good. The reason why they had not all been promoted to the combination stage was not because Murong Yu had any selfish motives. Instead, the 3 of them had reached the limit of their bodies. If they continued to improve, it would only be bad for them and not good for them. However, even so, Li Feng and the other 2 could not help but be overjoyed. 2 months. In just 2 months, they had gone from a mortal who did not know martial arts to a cultivator with decent strength. Would not be happy. Moreover, they did not have any ambitions. This ability was enough to protect themselves in the secular world. Moreover, they would have at least a few thousand years of lifespan. After all, who did not want to live longer and longer? Finally, little fatty. Murong Yu did not help him build his foundation, nor did he teach him any techniques. For the past 2 months, Murong Yu had been using his own power to continuously temper little fatty's body. Although this guy did not know anything now, he was still just a little kid. However, his body had reached the limit of a first-grade spiritual weapon, which was very terrifying. When he punched, even the body of an ordinary cultivator would not be able to resist his physical strength. Most importantly, this little guy had a very special physique, the war divine physique. As the name suggested, it was easy to see how terrifying this divine physique was. Although it was not as good as Murong Yu's chaotic celestial body, it was still a very rare physique. Once it grew up, it would definitely be a terrifying existence. On this day, Murong Yu and Li Feng's family gather in the hall. It's been a few months since I came back, and you now have the ability to protect yourselves. I think it's time for me to leave, Murong Yu said in a low voice. After all, he was a cultivator who pursued great power. Although life in the secular world was quiet, it did not suit him. Li Feng and the others had already guessed Murong Yu's thoughts, so they were not surprised. They were just a little reluctant. After all, if he left, it was unknown whether they would have a chance to meet again in this lifetime. But before I leave, I have something to discuss with you. It's about Li Ling. Li Ling, also known as Little Fatty, turned out to have a rare war divine physique. In the future, his achievements would be limitless. Naturally, Murong Yu wanted to take him away and nurture him. Otherwise, it would be a waste of the war divine physique if he stayed in the secular world. Are you taking him away? Li Feng asked. Murong Yu nodded. Of course, if you don't want to, I won't force you. However, Li Ling's aptitude is excellent, and his achievements will definitely not be low in the future. I hope you will consider it carefully. There's no need to consider. Let him go with you, Li Feng said with a determined expression. As a parent, he was reluctant to let his child leave his side. However, which parent didn't want their child to be outstanding? If Li Ling stayed with them, he would not be separated from his family, but it would also limit his future development. If he followed Murong Yu, it was possible for him to become an immortal or a god in the future. This was the only chance. Once Li Ling missed it, he would miss this opportunity. Therefore, Li Feng and the other two had no objections. In the next few days, Murong Yu explained some things to them in detail. He wrote down a large number of recovery pills and breakthrough pills, as well as jade slips, so that it would be convenient for them to contact each other in the future. Not long after, Murong Yu left the Li family with Little Fatty and returned to the cultivation world. At this time, the cultivation world was undergoing a drastic change. The appearance of demonic beasts caused chaos in the cultivation world. Some powerful demonic beasts even went from house to challenge the younger generation of human cultivators. Among them, the elites of various sects and chief disciples were all on the list. Murong Yu, who was in the limelight previously, was naturally in the list. However, Murong Yu seemed to have evaporated into thin air. He did not show up for several months. Chapter 191. The appearance of the demonic beasts in the Demon Mountain had caused the entire cultivation world to be in chaos. Furthermore, the most embarrassing thing for the human cultivators was that in the competition between the younger generation, the human cultivators were often not a match for the demonic beasts. Furthermore, the demonic beasts were wantonly challenging the younger generation of experts. Countless experts were killed in the process of challenging the demonic beasts. Many of the sect's elites were not as skilled as the demonic beasts and ended up being killed. This was the situation that Murong Yu understood after returning to the cultivation world. He did not even need to ask around to know about this matter from others. This was because in the cultivation world, everyone was talking about the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts were ferocious and had attracted the attention of the entire cultivation world. As for Murong Yu's matter, it had already been washed away by the demonic beasts. To this, Murong Yu did not comment. He did not care anymore. Even if the other sects were to hunt him down, he did not care. However, what made him feel puzzled was, why did the demonic beast suddenly appear out of nowhere? Could it be because of that fierce man? Thinking about that fierce man, Murong Yu's mind was once again filled with the terrifying scene of him going through the tribulation and blasting open half of the immortal gate. That fierce man's divine power was simply too terrifying. Furthermore, for countless years, the demonic beasts had been imprisoned in the Demon Mountain and had not come out. Not long after the fierce man's tribulation, they began to appear. It was easy for people to link them together. However, all of this had nothing to do with Morongyu. As long as it did not affect him, he could not be bothered with it, unless he was so bored that his balls hurt and had nothing to do. However, it wasn't up to Morongyu to stay out of the world of cultivation just because he wanted to. Usually, the more he did not want something to happen, the more it would happen to him. Wasn't this bang? A loud explosion suddenly resounded from the front. The terrifying impact caused even the restaurant Morongyu was in to tremble. Morongyu frowned. This kind of vibration wasn't caused by the explosion of power, but by something heavy falling to the ground. Morongyu couldn't help but go to the window and look in the direction of the loud noise. In front of them, a house had already been razed to the ground. A huge human-shaped crater appeared on the ground. There was a cultivator lying in the middle of the pit. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. "Ha! Is that all you human cultivators can do? Trash! You're all trash." At this moment, an extremely arrogant voice rang out from outer space. Morongyu raised his head and saw a giant man emitting a ferocious aura hovering in the air. His eyes were filled with disdain as he looked down at the human cultivators in the city and laughed wildly. Demon beast. Although this demonic beast had already transformed into a human, his words and the ferocious aura emitted from his body had already betrayed his identity. In fact, this demonic beast did not hide its identity. He had come here today to pick a fight and a fight. Human cultivators really weren't that great. His disdainful expression and arrogant words immediately caused many human cultivators to soar into the sky and charge towards the demonic beast. On the ground, many cultivators were already cursing loudly. "Damn it, it's just a demonic beast. How dare it be so arrogant here? It really doesn't know what's good for it. Brothers, let's kill this demonic beast and barbecue it for dinner. Go, kill this bastard." Amidst the angry roars, countless cultivators soared into the sky and pounced on the demonic beast. Seeing so many people rushing up together, the huge man in the sky laughed loudly. Not only did he not show any fear, but his expression of disdain became even sharper. Morongyu shook his head. Those people couldn't see through the huge man's cultivation, but he could. This guy was a body integration stage cultivator. There were only a few body integration stage cultivators rushing up. Even so, these cultivators were definitely not a match for the huge man. "Ha! You trash, if you have the guts, then fight outside the city for 300 rounds. The huge man laughed loudly and rushed out of the city in a flash. Although he was arrogant, he did not want to die. Although this city was not big, if he dared to fight in the city, the older generation would have a reason to kill him. However, if he did not fight in the city and only challenged these human cultivators outside the city, the older generation would not lower themselves to attack. Without any hesitation, Morongyu also soared into the sky and rushed out of the city. He also wanted to see the strength of these demonic beasts. Outside the city, 100 miles away, the giant man stood in the air and looked at the cultivators who were flying towards him with disdain in his eyes. Some of them were flying in the air, while others were flying on their swords. "You trash, come at me together." The huge man looked at the crowd and said disdainfully. His arrogance immediately angered the crowd. "I alone am enough to kill you." A body integration stage cultivator from an unknown sect slowly walked out of the crowd and looked at the huge man with disdain. "Remember, the one who will kill you is..." The body integration stage cultivator was about to announce his sect and his name to make a name for himself. However, before he could finish, the huge man roared, "If you want to fight, then fight. What's with the nonsense?" Then, the giant man's tall figure turned into a stream of light and rushed over. "You're courting death." He was interrupted by this despicable demonic beast before he could finish his sentence. This made the body integration stage cultivator very angry. With a roar, he immediately rushed towards the huge man with his weapon. "Die!" The huge man's eyes were filled with madness, and he threw a punch at the body integration stage cultivator. The body integration stage cultivator sneered and held his sword with both hands. instantly increasing his strength to the limit. Suddenly, 30-horned dragon projections appeared in the void above his head. They constantly circled around, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, emitting a terrifying aura. The body integration stage cultivator had already fused the power of 30-horned dragons into the sword in his hand. He viciously slashed at the demonic beast's fist, intending to cut it in half. The power of 30-horned dragons? The huge man sneered disdainfully. Then, he roared and a layer of faint yellow light erupted from his body. "Break for me!" With a loud roar, the huge man's fist was enveloped by a layer of faint yellow light. Then, his fist viciously collided with the sword. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Crack! After a crisp sound, the sword in the body integration stage cultivator's hand shattered. The huge man's fist only paused for a moment. Then, before the body integration stage cultivator could react, his fist viciously smashed into the body integration stage cultivator's head. Pooh! A cloud of blood splattered into the sky. The body integration stage cultivator's head had been blasted into a cloud of blood mist. He was directly killed. Seeing this scene, the crowd immediately gasped. Some of them even looked at the huge man in horror. Morong Yu shook his head. Although the huge man was stronger than the body integration stage cultivator, the body integration stage cultivator had too little combat experience. If he hadn't been stunned, he would have been able to escape after the sword in his hand was shattered. However, the body integration stage cultivator was stunned after his sword was shattered by the huge man's punch. Then he was directly killed. Don't these people know that the demonic beast body is much stronger than theirs? Morong shook his head and thought helplessly. Trash. The huge man's fist was covered in blood. Even his face was stained with blood. At this moment, he looked exceptionally ferocious. The huge man looked disdainfully at the corpse of his opponent. Then, he looked at the crowd with obvious disdain in his eyes. Is this all you humans can do? Trash. You're all trash. The huge man laughed loudly, constantly provoking the body integration stage cultivators in the crowd. However, after seeing the huge man's bloodthirstiness and strength, the people who were originally shouting to kill the huge man all shut up. Demonic beast, don't try to be brave. I'll deal with you. A young man with a grave expression slowly walked out of the crowd. It was another body integration stage cultivator. You're no match for me. All of you come at me. The huge man laughed loudly and pointed at the crowd. You're too arrogant. I'll kill you today. Wang Ming roared angrily. His body swayed and he still rushed forward. However, although Wang Ming was a little stronger than the body integration stage cultivator from before, he was still no match for the huge man. After a round of battle, the huge man finally tore Wang Ming into pieces with a sinister smile. 2 body integration stage cultivators were killed. Seeing how ferocious the huge man was, the crowd had already shut up. A bunch of trash. Is this the strength of you humans? Too weak. How can you dominate this world with your strength? You should be trampled under the feet of us demonic beasts. This world should belong to us demonic beasts. We are the strong ones. You don't deserve to dominate this world. The huge man continued to laugh wildly and ridicule these human cultivators. In the crowd, everyone was incomparably angry. All along, humans had boasted that they were the spirits of all creatures. How could they not be angry when a demonic beast stepped on their heads and humiliated them? However, the huge man's strength was too strong. None of them were his match at all. Go out and fight. That was purely courting death. The strong ones of the younger generation of the human race aren't here. If they were, how could a mere demonic beast like you be so unreasonable? A cultivator said angrily. What? You humans also have strong ones? Are you joking? Is it you? The huge man laughed loudly. His laughter was full of endless disdain and ridicule. In the crowd, Morong narrowed his eyes slightly, and a cold light flashed between his eyebrows. Morong disdained to participate in this kind of battle between demonic beasts and humans. However, don't forget that he was also in the crowd. On the other hand, the huge man was constantly looking at them with disdain and ridicule. He was also constantly calling them trash. which made Murong-Yu very unhappy. Chapter 192. If he didn't teach this reckless monster a lesson, then he would be trash in the monster's mouth. Not to mention that Murong-Yu wasn't trash. Even if he was, he wouldn't be able to stand being insulted like this. Thus, Murong-Yu carried the black spear on his back and walked out of the crowd. Under the intimidation of the giant monster, the crowd kept retreating. This made the giant monster even more disdainful and even more insolent. Only, he suddenly saw a person like a crane and a flock of chickens slowly walk out of the crowd. The giant monster's eyes suddenly flashed with a touch of light, but he quickly lost some interest, even jealousy and disdain, because he saw that Murong-Yu was only a spirit tranquil stage cultivator. He was a body fusion stage expert. This spirit tranquil stage cultivator actually dared to challenge him. Wasn't this courting death? Moreover, this made the giant monster very angry. Murong-Yu was clearly looking down on him. You, a spirit tranquil stage cultivator, also wants to challenge me? The giant monster pointed at Murong-Yu, his expression of disdain becoming more and more intense. Spirit tranquil stage, enough to kill you. Murong-Yu stood not far in front of the giant monster, looking at him, and said indifferently, "You don't know the difference between life and death." The demonic beast giant growled. The terrifying growl seemed to shake the earth. Those cultivators had the same thoughts as the monster. Seeing Murong-Yu's spirit tranquil stage appearance, each and every one of them admired his courage, the courage to die. In their view, even a body fusion stage cultivator wasn't a match for the giant monster, let alone a spirit tranquil stage cultivator like Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu's action was just throwing away his life. This is the young generation of human experts. Make your move, I'll give you 10 moves. The giant monster laughed, his voice containing endless disdain. Hearing this, the crowd's expression became even more ugly. Wasn't the demonic beast giant clearly mocking them? However, they could only suppress their anger at the bottom of their hearts. Who asked there to be no experts here? No, don't you fellows think that he looks familiar? One of the cultivators in the crowd suddenly said as he looked at Murong-Yu's back. You've seen him before? Someone looked at Murong-Yu's back with a strange expression. Ah, why does he also use a spear? That legendary great demon, King Murong-Yu, also uses a spear. When he has nothing to do, he also likes to carry a spear on his back. Could he be that Murong-Yu? Suddenly, someone stared at the phoenix spear on Murong-Yu's back and said, Murong-Yu, yes, he is Murong-Yu. Why do I feel a sense of familiarity with him? The person who spoke earlier slapped his head and exclaimed, Are you stupid? Where was Murong-Yu at this moment? How could he appear here so coincidentally? Although there aren't many cultivators who use spears, it doesn't mean that there aren't any. Someone coldly snorted and said, Obviously, he didn't believe that Murong-Yu was Murong-Yu. Of course, although Murong-Yu was notorious, if he really appeared here, these people would still welcome him. There was no other reason. Wasn't Murong-Yu very powerful? He could kill this demonic beast giant. In this way, although it wasn't them who killed the monster, it was still a human cultivator who killed it, right? They would also feel happy. Let me have 10 moves? You are very arrogant and simply don't know life from death. Murong-Yu didn't make a move. He just looked at the giant monster and sneered. The giant monster's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at Murong-Yu. A huge aura burst out like a vast ocean and swept towards Murong-Yu. It wanted to crush Murong-Yu. He said with a murderous look, Boy, since you want to die, then I will fulfill your wish. As he spoke, the demonic beast giant let out a low roar. He extended his fan-sized palm and fiercely slapped down at Murong-Yu. If it was really an ordinary cultivator of the spirit tranquil stage, he would definitely not be able to escape. He would definitely be slapped into a pulp by the giant monster. However, Murong-Yu was not an ordinary cultivator, not to mention a monster at the combination stage. He had even seen a monster at the transformation stage. Murong-Yu's figure flickered as he executed the soldier formula and disappeared from where he stood. Boom! The giant monster thought that his palm would slap Murong-Yu into a pulp, but it slapped the void and slapped on the ground. The terrifying power erupted, and a terrible hole appeared in the ground. When the big hand slapped the air, the monster had already reacted, but it was too late to stop. However, he did not think that Murong Yu was a strong cultivator. The reason why he avoided his attack was purely a fluke. Murong Yu's voice came from behind the demonic beast. I've always heard that the physical bodies of demonic beasts are extremely powerful, far surpassing those of human cultivators of the same realm. Today, I'd like to experience just how astonishing a demonic beast's physical body is. At the same time, a powerful fist wind smashed towards the back of the demonic beast with earth-shattering might. Right now, Murong Yu didn't want to use the might of the heavenly tribulation to kill the demonic beast, nor did he want to use treasures to kill it. He only wanted to see if he could use his own strength to beat this demonic beast down. Murong Yu's speed was very fast, but the giant monster at the combination stage was not slow either. When he felt Murong Yu's fist wind bombarding towards him, the giant monster had already roared and stepped forward a few steps. Then, he turned around to face Murong Yu and punched out. Murong Yu's words made the giant monster very angry. A small human cultivator at the tranquil spirit stage actually wanted to fight with his body. This was no longer looking down on him. For the giant monster, this was an absolute humiliation. Bang! The two fists quickly bombarded together. However, compared to the giant monster's fist, which was the size of a wine jar, Murong Yu's fist was too small. After a loud noise, Murong Yu seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. The place where his fist was as if it was hit by a divine mountain. It was extremely terrifying. A strong force came, and Murong Yu groaned, and his whole body was suddenly sent flying. On the other hand, the giant monster only swayed slightly. After all, although Murong Yu had the strength of 300 Pan Liang, it was only equivalent to the strength of 3 horned dragons. However, a combination stage monster had the strength of at least 20 horned dragons. Moreover, it was obvious that he had more than 20 horned dragons. Therefore, in terms of strength, Murong Yu was not a match for the giant monster at all. He was directly sent flying. Although he managed to send Murong Yu flying with a single punch, a trace of astonishment appeared on the demonic beast's face. He felt that although he sent Murong Yu flying, he could not hurt Murong Yu. The demonic beast even had the misconception that Murong Yu's physical body was even stronger than his own. This is impossible. The giant monster roared when he realized that he had this thought. No matter what, he would not admit that Murong Yu's body was stronger than his. If a tranquil spirit stage cultivator's body was stronger than his, it would be too shocking. Seeing that Murong Yu was sent flying by the giant monster with a punch, the crowd suddenly exclaimed. This was because when the two combination stage cultivators were sent flying by the giant monster, they were almost directly killed. And Murong Yu was only a tranquil spirit stage cultivator? He would probably be directly beaten into a pile of meat paste, right? Everyone in the crowd thought so. However, Murong Yu's strength was beyond everyone's expectations. Although in terms of strength, Murong Yu was far from being a match for the giant monster. In terms of physical strength, there was probably no one in the cultivation world who could compare to him. Even the fierce man who went through the tribulation that day. Murong Yu's body was a 7th grade spiritual weapon. Suppressing his somewhat impetuous chi and blood, Murong Yu's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at the giant monster who was charging towards him. This guy's body was also very strong, but he could not hurt him at all. Kill! Murong Yu's throat erupted with a dull roar. Then he used the army formula and turned into a stream of light, sweeping across the sky and rushing towards the giant monster. Rumble! 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 The two crazy experts did not use strength, but only the strength of their bodies to start battle. The dragon soared and the tiger leaped, the dragon roared and the tiger roared. The phantoms of the dragon, tiger, and elephant continued to appear in the void. The momentum was vast and shocking. The terrifying aura continued to erupt, tearing the sky and splitting the earth, shaking the sky. 1,000 army elephant fist. Murong Yu roared and punched out. Suddenly, The phantoms of the dragon and elephant appeared in the void behind him. It was very spectacular and terrifying. Elephant King Fist. The giant monster also roared and punched at Muronyu fiercely. Bang! The two fists, one big and one small, violently collided together. Time seemed to have paused strangely for a moment, and then the terrifying impact exploded. After an earth-shattering explosion, Muronyu and the demonic beast were both sent flying. Tiger Roar Emperor Fist. Muronyu was only sent flying. He was not injured at all. His figure had already rushed over while he was leaping. With a roar, he once again bombarded the demonic beast giant. Bang! In a hurry, the giant monster was actually sent flying by Muronyu. At this time, Muronyu was different from Muronyu's calm and collected appearance. His body was strong, and he was not injured at all. However, the giant monster was in a terrible state. At this time, blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his body was directly torn by Muronyu, leaving shocking wounds. And his bones were broken by Muronyu. In a pure physical competition, the giant monster was not Muronyu's opponent at all. It could even be said that he was suppressed by Muronyu. Chapter 193. At this moment, the demonic beast giant's face was filled with shock. In terms of pure physical strength, he was not a match for that human at all. He was a demonic beast, and 3 whole realms higher than the human. How could he not be a match for the human? How is this possible? Even though he was being suppressed by Muronyu, the demonic beast giant still couldn't believe this was real. However, the pain and broken bones in his body told him that all of this was real. He really wasn't a match for the human cultivator. Even though he couldn't believe it, he had to believe that this was the truth. After a round of intense battle, Muronyu felt refreshed. Why? He hadn't fought with his fists for a long time. When he fought with human cultivators, he often used his hands to form sword techniques, releasing flying swords or magic treasures to kill the enemy. It was basically a long-range battle. It was far less exciting than a close-range battle. As for demonic beasts, no matter what kind of demonic beast, they were all good at close combat. Coupled with their strong physical body and various battle techniques, it was the fighting style that Muronyu pursued. Therefore, after encountering this demonic beast giant, Muronyu rushed out and directly began to fight. Otherwise, if he wanted to kill this demonic beast giant, he only needed to attract an abnormal tribulation, and with the help of other treasures, he could directly kill him. Even if he couldn't kill him, he could at least intimidate him. Am I seeing this right? That demonic beast is actually losing? Seeing this scene, everyone in the crowd felt that it was too unbelievable. A cultivator of the spirit tranquil stage was actually suppressing a demonic beast in physical strength? But this was the reality that they saw. No matter what, in the end, Muronyu was the winner. Haha, demonic beast, why aren't you arrogant anymore? Why don't you continue to be arrogant? You really don't know life from death. Kill him. Suddenly, the crowd became agitated and began to mock the defeated demonic beast youth. At this time, they had already forgotten the fact that they were constantly retreating under the demonic beast's ferocious power. The demonic beast giant's face was ashen, but he wasn't a sore loser. Although he had lost to someone whose realm was far below his in terms of physical strength, he still possessed a violent strength. He believes that if he explodes with his berserk strength, he can tear apart this spirit tranquil stage cultivator. However, he did not do so. Losing to a cultivator of the spirit tranquil stage in terms of the physical body that he was so proud of was a disgrace to him. Even if he wanted to go all out, he had to win back in terms of physical strength. Therefore, he did not use his violent power. He only looked at Muronyu with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency's physical body is very strong. Even I am not your match. But soon, I will come back and tear you apart." Muronyu laughed and said without minding, "I welcome you. Right, remember my name? It's Muronyu." Muronyu, all right, I'll remember that. You're the first human I've met whose body is stronger than mine. But one day, I will be stronger than you. One day, I will personally tear your body to shreds. Remember, my name is Xiang Tai." The demonic beast giant, Xiang Tai, looked at Murong Yu and said with a rising fighting spirit, "I'm looking forward to that day." Murong Yu also laughed. "Goodbye." Xiang Tai was not a person who could not let go. Naturally, a loss was a loss. He cupped his fists towards Murong Yu, then soared into the sky and flew into the distance. This guy is interesting. Looking at Xiang Tai's figure disappearing into the horizon, Murong Yu said with a smile, his face also revealing a look of anticipation. Although these demonic beasts were very fierce and killed without batting an eye, but most of them were true to their words and would not go back on their words. They were not like some human cultivators who would come out after beating the small one. Moreover, if they couldn't afford to lose, they would play tricks behind the scenes. All kinds of insidious tricks would constantly appear and directly kill people. Of course, not all demonic beasts were like Xiang Tai. Take the Greenback King, for example. If he met Murong Yu again, this shameless old man would definitely attack Murong Yu. After all, Murong Yu had killed a strand of his divine sense. If the Greenback King was not angry, how could he still have the face to stay on the Demon Mountain and in the cultivation world? Ah, he really is Murong Yu. Murong Yu's body is actually so strong. He actually fought against a demonic beast at the body integration stage and even defeated it. This is unbelievable. Murong Yu is indeed Murong Yu. He really lives up to his name. Seeing that Murong Yu had easily defeated Xiang Tai, the surrounding people could not help but exclaim. All kinds of flattering words were poured towards Murong Yu like a torrential river. However, it was a pity that Murong Yu didn't fall for it. He just glanced at the crowd indifferently and then directly soared into the sky like a stream of light, quickly disappearing into the distance. In the battle with Xiang Tai, Murong Yu comprehended some skills that he had not comprehended before. As the saying goes, fighting is the best way to improve one's strength. Since demonic beasts roamed the cultivation world and constantly challenged the younger generation of disciples of various sects, Murong Yu also had this idea in his heart. However, the cultivation world was really too big. Although demonic beasts had already appeared, it was really not easy to meet a powerful demonic beast. During this process, Murong Yu constantly used the jade slips scattered by primal chaos members and the jade slips on their bodies to appear in various places. The number of primal chaos members in the He2 and the He2 and the Luo Shu kept increasing. Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise. The four teams each had more than 10,000 people. Moreover, all of them were women. Murong Yu really wanted to create an army of women. During this period of time, under the training of Hichu Luo Shu, there were preliminary results. However, they were still in the foundation establishment stage, and these were all wandering children who had not come into contact with martial arts before. These people had no knowledge of cultivators and were all sallow and emaciated. After all, they were all wandering children. Sometimes, it was normal for them to not have anything to eat for a few days. When a number of members of Chaos reached a certain level, Murong Yu realized that it was not easy to cultivate his own forces. These people were still in a state of malnutrition. If he wanted them to cultivate, he had to let their bodies catch up first. Therefore, Murong Yu began to purchase all kinds of nourishing medicinal herbs, all kinds of food, and so on in the secular world. What made Murong Yu most depressed was that although he had a large number of recovery pills and the like, and even 2 spirit veins on him, however, all the things he was purchasing now were all things of the secular world. All of them required the gold and silver of the secular world. However, Murong Yu did not have them. He had no choice but to return to Ni City and directly ask Li Feng for a large sum of money. However, it was still a drop in the bucket. Murong Yu naturally felt embarrassed to continue to ask Li Feng for money. Moreover, the money was like a bottomless pit. Even if Li Feng was rich, he could not provide it. In the end, Murong Yu had no choice but to find some rare medicinal herbs and spiritual herbs in the secular world and throw them in the auction house in the secular world. Only then did he have enough money. Half a year passed in a flash. During this period, the number of members of Chaos had grown to 100,000. In just half a year, Morong-Yu had managed to increase the number to over 100,000. Morong-Yu couldn't help sighing. There was no other reason than that it was too easy to recruit people now. But this was not the point. The point was, how many homeless children were there in the world? These were the people that Young Man and the others found in the big cities of various countries. And they only found a small part of each place. But even so, it only took half a year to reach 100,000 people. It was conceivable how many homeless children there were in the world. However, Morong-Yu wasn't some kind of savior. He would only occasionally sigh and express his compassion. To save those children from the abyss of suffering? How many people could he save? Not to mention Morong-Yu, even one of the top 10 sects could not do it. Unless this world was truly at peace, free from war and poverty. After half a year, Morong-Yu did not walk in the cultivation world. Instead, he was busy with the affairs of Chaos. At this time, when the number of members of Chaos had reached 100,000, Morong-Yu once again entered the ultimate heaven realm. He wanted to use the 9th spiritual vein he found in the ultimate heaven realm to enhance the power of Chaos and others. Although Morong-Yu also had 2 spiritual veins, they were consumables after all. He would not use them if he could. Time was accelerated by 100 times. At the same time, Hichu Luoshu was completely unrestrained. He directly devoured the spiritual energy of the 9th spiritual vein and provided it to the people inside to start cultivating. At the same time, on the other side, Morong-Yu finally saw how the yin-yang cauldron refined pills. At this time, the yin-yang cauldron transformed into the size of a mountain. The yin-yang fire on top of it enveloped the entire ancient cauldron, exuding a terrifying aura that made one's soul tremble. Under Hichu's control, the spiritual energy of the 9th spiritual vein poured in continuously like a river and entered the ancient cauldron from one side of the yin-yang cauldron. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. On the other side of the ancient cauldron, round and smooth pills kept spewing out like a fountain. Not long after, they piled up into a small mountain. This was the first time Morong-Yu saw the yin-yang cauldron refining pills. He was so shocked that he could not move. How was this refining pills? It's clearly transforming the spirit chi into pills directly. Who in this world has this ability? It's too terrifying. Morong-Yu thought to himself in shock. Of course, Morong-Yu was a little ignorant. The yin-yang cauldron could directly use the spiritual vein to refine pills without using spiritual herbs and spiritual herbs. This was indeed the only one in the world. But what about concocting pills? Those big sects were not slow either. Otherwise, how could they provide pills for hundreds of thousands of disciples? Under the support of the rank, 9 spirit veins spiritual energy, which was as vast as the ocean, he too and Luo Shu began to accelerate time and refine various kinds of pills. Time was accelerated by 100 times, and it did not consume any of Morong-Yu's resources. The most terrifying thing was the yin-yang cauldron. With the support of the endless spiritual energy, various pills were refined continuously. Chapter 194. Hundreds of trillions of recovery pills had been refined. Even the realm breakthrough pills had been refined in trillions. As for other rare pills, such as the Tribulation Crossing Golden Pill, many of them had also been refined. In Morong-Yu's words, as long as he had the pill formula, he would refine all of them. Anyway, the rank 9 spirit vein was almost endless. Most importantly, with Morong-Yu's current strength, it was impossible for him to subdue this spirit vein. Based on the principle that he could not take it away or waste it, Morong-Yu began to use this spirit vein crazily. At the same time, on the basis of time acceleration, the people in Hichu Luoshu, especially the children brought back from all over the world, were growing up rapidly. As they grew up, their strength increased day by day. Anyway, now that there was endless spiritual chi and realm breakthrough pills, as long as it was within their limits, Morong-Yu began to increase their strength by a large amount. Of course, Murong, you did not increase their strength to the form synthesis stage in one fell swoop. Although it would allow their strength to increase rapidly, it would not do them any good. Because these people had just started cultivating not long ago, they did not have any foundation at all. In the Hichu Luoshu world, there was an independent space. Lightning lingered here, and a terrifying aura was constantly emitted. It was very frightening and frightening. These were the tribulation lightning that Murong you had transferred here when he was going through the tribulation. For some reason, these tribulation lightning did not dissipate with the passage of time. Instead, there were more and more of them. Wow! Waves of strange sounds were constantly heard from the tribulation lightning. Looking from afar, in the dense tribulation lightning, a figure was jumping up and down, trying to escape the surrounding tribulation lightning. However, the entire space was filled with tribulation lightning. As long as he did not leave this area, he would not be able to avoid the tribulation lightning no matter what. Of course, if he had any treasures on him, or even enough power to block the tribulation lightning, he would not be struck by the lightning. However, it was obvious that this guy had nothing. At this time, all his clothes had been shredded by the tribulation lightning. His whole body had been bombarded by the tribulation lightning until it was pitch black. His hair was standing high, and his body was emitting bursts of meat fragrance. He was in a sorry state. Wah, I'm about to be struck to death. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I have to escape. After a strange cry, the figure immediately rushed out of the tribulation lightning. The young man's speed was very fast. In just a few breaths of time, he had already left the area enveloped by the tribulation lightning and appeared outside of it. However, before he could stabilize himself, a large hand tore through the void from afar and slapped him fiercely. Ha! Ah! Following a strange cry, the person who had just rushed out of the tribulation lightning didn't even have time to react before he was pulled back into the tribulation lightning by the big hand. If you don't last for 4 hours, you're not allowed to come out. After the man was slapped into the tribulation lightning, a cold voice rang out from afar. Hearing this voice, the person inside the tribulation thunder screamed again. 4 hours, boss, he Tuesday. After 4 hours, I'll be smashed to pieces by the tribulation thunder. Not even my ashes will be left. When that time comes, you won't be able to collect my corpse. For hours from now on. Hichu's indifferent voice came. Uncle Murong, save me. That freak, he too wants to kill me. The guy in the tribulation lightning was the little fatty Li Ling from back then. However, under the acceleration of time by Hichu Luoshu, he had grown up to be a young man, and his strength was not weak. He had reached the out-of-body stage, which was even higher than Murong Yu's solitary spirit stage. Such a realm made Murong Yu a little embarrassed. However, although Murong Yu was only at the solitary spirit stage, his actual combat power was nothing. Even if there were 10 Li Lings, they would not be able to defeat him. After howling for a while, Murong Yu did not appear. Li Ling no longer made a futile struggle and began to cultivate directly in the tribulation lightning, guiding the tribulation lightning to begin to temper his body. In fact, since childhood, Li Ling had been specially taken care of by Hichu. When he was young, he had been thrown into the tribulation lightning by Hichu to temper his body. So now, he was only in the out-of-body stage, but his body had reached the level of a third-grade spiritual weapon. Compared to the monsters of the same realm, it was not inferior or even stronger. Except for Li Ling, Hichu Luoshu had always been, all the members of Chaos had to go to the tribulation lightning and use it to temper their body. Therefore, while their cultivation was constantly improving, their body was also getting stronger. Compared to the cultivators of the same realm in the outside world, their body was many times stronger. Even some people with outstanding aptitude had a body much stronger than the monsters of the same realm. Moreover, during this period of time, the dozens of disciples that Murong Yu borrowed from the Xianyue sect, including Yongman, Sima Ruyu, and Pei Pei Yu, although they did not break through to the tribulation realm, their bodies were getting stronger and stronger. The reason was none other than the tribulation lightning that had existed for a long time in Hichu Luo Shu. And the tribulation lightning was the most powerful attack force in the world, the most violent force. In the outside world, how could there be so much tribulation lightning? Even if there was tribulation lightning, it was only fleeting and could not be used to temper the body. But here, there was an endless amount of tribulation lightning. Such benefits made Young Man and the others unwilling to leave here. At this time, even if Murong Yu wanted to send them back to the Xianyue sect, they would not be willing to go back. After all, although the Xianyue sect was one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world, how could it be treated as well as here? For hours later, Li Ling finally came out of the tribulation lightning. In addition to being struck like a black man, Li Ling's skin and flesh were split open. His whole body was only breathing in and not out. However, under the dual treatment of the He-2 and the medicinal pill, Li Ling quickly recovered to full of vigor. Moreover, after recovering, Li Ling was slightly stronger than before. Although it was not obvious, he was still stronger. That was the power of the tribulation lightning to temper the body. Kill. In the extreme heaven realm, the mystic realm that only opened once every 10 years, there were many people fighting and killing here. Some cultivators were fighting each other, while some were fighting with various monsters and ferocious beasts. Anyway, it was very lively. Moreover, almost all of these cultivators were women. Of course, these were the members of Murong Yu's chaos. Apart from cultivating every day and tempering their bodies in the tribulation lightning, these people were training in the extreme heaven realm. Sometimes, the members would kill each other, train, or simply kill the demonic beasts. In any case, the extreme heaven realm was extremely large, almost infinite, and there were many powerful monsters inside. Of course, Murong Yu did not let these people challenge those powerful monsters. That was purely courting death. Murong Yu had spent countless efforts to nurture these people. Losing one of them would make his heart ache. Time passed slowly. Under Hichu Luoshu's acceleration of time, by 100 times, 100 years had passed in Hichu Luoshu, and a year had passed in the outside world. A year in the outside world was 100 years in Hichu Luoshu. The difference in time was huge. The changes in the members of Chaos were also very strong. After 100 years of cultivation, the 100,000 members of Chaos had all advanced to the peak of the unification stage. Each of their bodies was at least a grade 1 spirit weapon. Furthermore, they had accumulated a wealth of battle experience over the years. Of course, their experience was limited to the many monsters in the extreme heaven realm. They had not experienced a life and death battle with the cultivation world. In the outside world, because of the appearance of the monsters in the Demon Mountain, the cultivation world was in chaos. During this period, the younger generation of monsters in the Demon Mountain had all appeared. Each of them had shocking strength and terrifying magical powers. The elite disciples of the major sects in the cultivation world had also finally appeared. The successor disciples, saints, saintesses, and chief disciples had all appeared. The stars were shining brightly. This was a huge stage that belonged to countless powerhouses of the younger generation. On this stage, powerhouses were constantly rising, but there were also many disciples who were originally famous falling. Powerhouses were constantly appearing, and the weak were destined to be the stepping stones for these powerhouses to reach the peak. These powerhouses had experienced countless battles and stepped on countless enemies' corpses to slowly rise. In this year, the cultivation world was no longer dominated by human cultivators. After the monsters in the Demon Mountain appeared, in just a short year, they even had the strength to be on par with the human forces. The world was already cruel enough, but now was even more cruel. After a year of settling, a list of powerhouses of the younger generation appeared in the cultivation world, the Dragon and Phoenix list. The Dragon and Phoenix list was the top 100 powerhouses of the younger generation in the cultivation world. Among them were cultivators from both the human race and the demonic beast race. There were both men and women. Those who could enter this list were all monstrous existences. Think about it. In the cultivation world, how many human and monster cultivators were there in the younger generation? It was like the sand in the Ganges River. And among so many cultivators, if the top 100 weren't monstrous, then what was? Although there might be some young powerhouses who were stronger than these 100 powerhouses in the cultivation world, these 100 powerhouses weren't weak at all. Yu, on the other hand, had managed to enter the rankings with his silent spirit stage cultivation. Chapter 195. Yu, at the peak of the spirit tranquil stage, with the power of 300 heavenly suns and countless treasures, his combat power was extremely powerful. In the revolving reflection stage, he killed many crossing tribulation stage cultivators. Later, he betrayed Zushinzong. In a big battle, he killed several Zushinzong's crossing tribulation stage cultivators and broke one of Zushinzong's immortal tools. Zushinzong's sect master was almost killed. In the end, the one-step immortal Zhang Jing took action, but Yu still calmly left Zushinzong. Although this person's strength was not very good, but he had a lot of treasures on him. His overall combat power was enough to enter the Dragon Phoenix list, so he was ranked 100th on the Dragon Phoenix list. Yu couldn't help but bitterly smile as he looked at the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard that he'd spent 100,000 yuan recovery pills to buy. It was a disciple ranked at the bottom of the leaderboard. He really didn't expect that he would be able to enter this list, but seeing the comprehensive combat power, Yu also understood. If he counted all kinds of comprehensive combat power, Yu felt that he was definitely more than 100th. Black Tribulation Thunder, Heaven and Earth Bow, Heaven and Earth Yin Yang Cauldron, Hichu Luo Shu, and so on. Even if Yu didn't have the combat power of the top 10, he could at least protect himself against the top 10 experts. Of course, Yu didn't know the specific strength of the people on the list, but with the combat power he showed before, he could only be ranked 100th. He was able to kill a crossing tribulation stage cultivator. With this kind of combat power, he could only be ranked 100th. Then, everyone in the top 100 had the ability to kill enemies above their level. Wouldn't the top 10, or even the guy in the first place, be able to kill a transformation stage cultivator? Yu continued to look at the list in his hand. On the list, except for himself, he didn't know anyone else. He had never even heard of them. Skimming through these rankings, Yu's eyes finally stopped at the top 10. The first place on the Dragon Phoenix list, the chief disciple of the Hidden Fairy Valley, Li Su. It was said that this person had reached the metamorphosis stage and was the most powerful person among the younger generation in the cultivation world. His combat strength was extremely terrifying. It was said that before this person had broken through to the transformation stage, he had torn apart an expert in the transformation stage with one hand. He hadn't even reached the transformation stage, yet he was able to tear apart a transformation stage expert. Moreover, he didn't even use the power of any treasures or weapons. This person's strength was truly terrifying. Furthermore, she was the chief disciple of the Hidden Fairy Valley. Yu shook his head. He had been in the Hidden Fairy Valley for a long time, but he had never heard anything about the chief disciple. If he had not been ranked first on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, he would not have known that the chief disciple of the Hidden Fairy Valley had such terrifying strength. The person ranked second on the Dragon Phoenix ranking was the Little Rock King, an expert of the younger generation of the Fiend Beast race. He was a direct descendant of the Demonic Mountain's 10 great Fiend Kings. His combat prowess was world-shaking, and he also had an unparalleled speed that left others in the dust. The Great Rock King was not only strong, but he was also good at speed. Even the Greenback King, one of the 10 great Fiend Kings of the Demonic Mountain, who was also good at speed, was far from being a match for the Great Rock King. Moreover, the Great Rock King's combat prowess was also an absolute existence among the 10 great Fiend Kings. The person ranked third on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard was the holy son of the Limitless Sword Sect, Xuechun. His cultivation base was extremely high. With the long sword in his hand, he could move freely between heaven and earth, easily killing enemies above his level. He was an expert in the transformation stage. The grandson of the giant ape king, one of the 10 great fiend kings of the demonic mountain, was ranked 4th on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard. As for the 5th place, it was the chief disciple of the Hahuan sect, one of the 10 great sects of the cultivation world, Luo Yi. 6th place, Little Lion King. 7th place, Nine-Tailed Fox Clan, Hu Tong. 8th place, Zhushenzong's chief disciple, Ma Tianyan. 9th place was Xianyue sect's chief disciple, Zhong Lilin. 10th place was Yuan Su sect's chief disciple, Hui Tianyi. The top 10 of the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard were all extremely powerful. Moreover, there were a total of 4 experts of the younger generation of the demonic mountain on the leaderboard. Little Rock King, Little Lion King, Little Ape King, and Hu Tong of the Fox Clan. Moreover, among the young experts on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, there were also many experts of the demonic beast clan on the leaderboard. Although their numbers were not as good as humans. However, the demonic mountain was only the tip of the iceberg in the vast cultivation world. There were actually so many experts on the leaderboard. One could imagine how terrifying the strength of the demonic beast clan was. Putting down the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard in his hand, Murongyu pondered. Just the experts of the younger generation on the leaderboard were already so terrifying. What about the others who were not on the leaderboard? Although they could not enter the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, their strength was definitely not weak. Moreover, it was impossible for the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard to collect all the experts of the younger generation. Some cultivators who lived in seclusion were probably not on this leaderboard at all. If the experts of the younger generation were already so powerful, then what about the people of the older generation? It was only at this moment that Murongyu realized that he had been too ignorant. Now, with the appearance of these leaderboards, the cultivation world would become more and more lively. The big stage of the cultivation world would officially open for them. The cultivation world would also enter the era of 100 schools of thought contending. Apart from the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, 2 other leaderboards appeared at the same time. The 100 Talents leaderboard and the 100 Flowers leaderboard. As the name implied, the 100 Talents leaderboard was the top 100 handsome men of the younger generation. As for the 100 Flowers leaderboard, it was the beauty leaderboard. As for the 100 Talents leaderboard, Murongyu thought that he was a normal man. He was not the least bit interested in the handsome men on the leaderboard. Moreover, he knew that with his appearance, it was impossible for him to enter the 100 Talents leaderboard. Most importantly, the 100 Talents leaderboard was also expensive. It cost 50,000 recovery pills. In the end, Murongyu only bought the 100 Flowers leaderboard. Murongyu was not a pervert, but as a man, it was normal to admire beautiful women. Therefore, when he bought the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, he also bought the 100 Flowers leaderboard. The number 1 beauty on the 100 Flowers leaderboard, one of the saintesses of the hidden fairy valley, Li Sisi. Li Sisi? A strange expression appeared on Murongyu's face. The hidden fairy valley lived up to its name as one of the 10 great sects. It was even vaguely the leader of the 10 great sects. Apart from producing experts, it also produced beautiful women. The number 1 beauty on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard was Li Su, the head disciple of the hidden fairy valley. The number 1 beauty on the 100 Flowers leaderboard was also a disciple of the hidden fairy valley, one of the saintesses. Both of them have the surname Li. Could they be related? Murongyu thought in a strange manner. If these 2 people were related, then would the number 1 beauty on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, Li Su, also appear on the 100 Talents leaderboard? Li Sisi also had an introduction. Murongyu continued reading. As expected, Li Sisi and Li Su were siblings. Interesting. One is number 1 on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard, while the other is number 1 on the 100 Talents leaderboard. However, since the older sister is a disciple on the 100 Flowers leaderboard, the younger brother should not be too bad. He should also be on the 100 Talents leaderboard, Murongyu guessed. In fact, Murongyu guessed correctly. Li Su was not only strong, but he was also handsome. Should I take some time to go back to the hidden fairy valley and see how beautiful Li Sisi is? Murongyu's eyes turned. He actually wanted to go back and see her beauty. Number 2 on the 100 Beauties leaderboard. Zhushenzong Saintis Inlanchen. Zhushenzong Saintis? Murong Yu's face revealed a strange expression again. He seemed to have heard someone say that Zhushenzong Saintis was also a beauty. Yes, when he first entered the hidden fairy valley and met Jiang Lu and Chong Lu, those two guys had told him. However, he had never seen this saintess before. At the time, he had been somewhat disdainful. He did not expect this woman to be number 2 on the 100 Beauties leaderboard. Number 3 on the 100 Beauties leaderboard. Hidden Fairy Valley Saintess, Zhao Jiqing. When he saw this, Murong Yu couldn't help but smile. I knew it. My Jiqing is so beautiful. How could she not be on the 100 Beauties leaderboard? Murong Yu's smile was brilliant. It was as if the person on the leaderboard was not Zhao Jiqing, but himself. Zhao Jiqing was number 3 on the 100 Beauties leaderboard for a reason. She was originally a peerless beauty that could topple cities. The reason she was number 3 was probably because she was younger and more inexperienced. Otherwise, with her peerless beauty in Qing City, she would definitely be able to ruthlessly trample Li Sisi and Yin Lanchen under her feet. These were all Murong Yu's thoughts. Whether this was the truth or not, he would only know after comparing. However, there was a good saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Not to mention that Zhao Jiqing was a peerless beauty in Qing City. Even if she was an ordinary woman, she would still be the most beautiful woman in the world in Murong Yu's eyes. Hu Tong, number 4 on the 100 Beauties leaderboard, was also number 7 on the Dragon and Phoenix leaderboard. She was a woman with both beauty and battle prowess. Number 5 was the Hahuan sect saintess, Qing Qin. Her name was pleasant to the ear, but her reputation wasn't all that great. In reality, the Hahuan sect was a very strange and rather lascivious sect in the cultivation world. They emphasized dual cultivation, and both men and women in the sect were very lascivious. Saintess Qing Qin, for example, seemed to be an incomparably pure beauty from her name. However, who knew how many men she'd slept with, if it weren't for the fact that the Hahuan sect was extremely powerful and ranked as one of the 10 great sects, it would have been destroyed long ago. After all, in front of those sanctimonious fellows, this kind of sect really deserved to be destroyed. Looking down one by one, Murong Yu soon found an acquaintance on the 100 Beauties leaderboard. Yu Mengqing, number 95 on the 100 Beauties leaderboard. Yu Mengqing can also be on the leaderboard? Murong Yu couldn't help but hesitate. Although Yu Mengqing wasn't bad, it was a bit suspicious that she could be on the leaderboard. If Yu Mengqing heard Murong Yu's words, she'd probably pounce on Murong Yu in anger and bite him to death. In fact, Yu Mengqing was also a great beauty and absolutely qualified to be on the 100 Beauties leaderboard. The reason Murong Yu thought so was only because he'd seen too much of her and didn't think she was very beautiful. Falling Star City was one of the 5 great cities of the cultivation world and was located in the center of the cultivation world. It was one of the 5 great cities of the cultivation world, along with Cloudwater Village in the east, Southern Wilderness City in the south, Chong, and in the west, and Xianyang City in the north. Upper Azure Town was considered a big city, but compared to Fallen Star City, it was like a small town in the presence of a great one. In a remote corner on the outskirts of Falling Star City, the void slightly distorted and a figure appeared out of thin air. This person was Murong Yu, ranked 100th on the Dragon Phoenix leaderboard. Because members of the Chaos faction had been here before, Murong Yu didn't need to travel long distances at all. He only needed to use Hichu Luoshu's transmission to arrive at the legendary Falling Star City in an instant. Rumble. As soon as Murong Yu appeared, and before he could enter Falling Star City, he heard a series of violent roars in the distance. Accompanied by the shaking of the earth, a monstrous aura pressed down from afar. It was soul-stirring. Experts are fighting. Murong Yu's heart skipped a beat. He immediately rose into the air and flew in the direction of the sound. Chapter 196. Stepping on the Soldier Formula, His figure was like a stream of light as he quickly cut through the sky and disappeared into the distant void. Not long after, Murong Yu approached the direction of the battle. However, before he could get close to the battle, Murong Yu saw that there was already a large circle of people surrounding him. These people were all like Murong Yu and came to watch the show after hearing the news. In the void in front of him, two figures emitting an incomparably terrifying aura were fighting. An incomparably terrifying aura erupted, and the void was constantly shattered by the power that erupted from them. The earth trembled, and the sky swayed. It was extremely terrifying. One was an expert from the demonic beast clan, and the other was a human cultivator. Both of them were at the tribulation stage. Their strength was extremely terrifying. There were more than 50 to 60 incomparably condensed horned dragon phantoms hovering above each of their heads. After watching for a while, these two fellows were truly incomparably ferocious, and it was difficult to tell who was the winner. Moreover, it seemed that it was not as simple as just exchanging pointers. Their fists hit the flesh, and if they were not careful, they would die. However, Murong Yu did not know who these two fellows were. However, these two people's identities were definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, their battle would not have attracted so many people to watch. Hey, who are those two people? Murong Yu had no choice but to pull a person beside him and ask. Those two are both experts on the Dragon Phoenix list. That human cultivator is called Zhou Su, and he's ranked 90th on the Dragon Phoenix list. As for the demonic beast expert, he was ranked 91st. His name is Hu Lin. The reason why they fought was because Hu Lin was not convinced that Zhou Su had stepped on his head, so he issued a challenge. The guy who spoke was surprisingly enthusiastic, and he explained it to Murong Yu in detail. I see. Murong Yu looked at the battle in the field and nodded. There were too many battles like this. It was nothing more than a competition for rankings. What was there to compete for? Murong Yu was somewhat disdainful in his heart. Although he was ranked last on the Dragon Phoenix list, he had never thought of challenging people who were ranked higher than him to improve his ranking. However, Murong Yu had another idea. Since these people were ranked above him, although they were all powerful, they weren't all that heaven-defying. If he challenged these people and kept fighting, his strength would become stronger and stronger. Only fighting was the best way to increase one's strength. The reason why Murong Yu came to Meteor City this time was to challenge the various experts. In the air, the two young experts on the Dragon Phoenix list had already started fighting. Terrifying power continued to spread out, sweeping in all directions. With a single step, the earth and the void shattered. Streaks of sword chi and saber shadows tore through the void and soared into the sky. The heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and moon lost their light. It was extremely terrifying. Bang! In the end, Hu Lin was not Zhou Su's match from start to finish. He was ruthlessly sent flying by Zhou Su's sword, almost splitting his entire body in two. Although he did not manage to kill him, Hu Lin also no longer had the strength to fight. Hu Lin continued to roar, his eyes filled with unwillingness. But what could they do? Zhou Su's ranking higher than him was not just for show. Every expert on the list had the absolute strength to stand on the position that belonged to them. If they were ranked higher than you, they were ranked higher. Unless you broke through, it was impossible for you to be their match. This battle also allowed Murong Yu to see the strength of the experts on the list. Just the 90th place had such terrifying strength. Then what about the top 10 experts? Or even number 1? How terrifying was their strength? However, even though he defeated Hu Lin, Zhou Su did not have an easy time. At this moment, his face was pale, as if he had exhausted too much strength. The two of them were ranked close to each other, and the difference in strength was very small. They were only on par. However, he managed to maintain his 90th place. The victor had been decided, and the crowd gradually dispersed. After all, there was no good show to watch. Just as Murong Yu was about to leave, a person blocked Murong Yu's path. You are Murong Yu? The one who was ranked 100th on the Dragon Phoenix list in the Spirit Tranquil stage. The shameless person who betrayed Zushinzong? This was a young man. After blocking Murong Yu, he said a lot of things. Looking at his disdainful and unhappy expression, it was as if Morong owed him tens of millions of return yuan pills. Being blocked by someone, Morong was very unhappy in his heart. Moreover, the other party's words were very unpleasant, so he naturally did not have a good expression. He did not even bother to look at the other party. A good dog does not block the way. Get out of my way. Hearing this, Wei Xing was instantly enraged. Morong actually called him a dog. How could he hold back the anger in his heart? Thus, he growled, stretched out his hand, and fiercely punched Morong's head. You're courting death. Morong's eyebrows flashed with a cold light. He shouted angrily. His figure flickered and suddenly disappeared in place, retreating quickly. Who are you? Morong asked with a gloomy face. His murderous look was extremely terrifying. You're only at the spirit tranquil stage. You've already reached the out-of-body stage, but you can enter the 100th place on the Dragon Phoenix list. Today, I'm going to beat you up and take your place. By the way, boy, remember when you die, my name is Wei Xing, and I'm Zhu Xinzong's successor disciple. Wei Xing sneered, his figure flickered, and still rushed towards Morong. Zhu Xinzong's disciple? Morong suddenly laughed. This guy turned out to be Zhu Xinzong's disciple, and he even wanted to challenge him. He really didn't know how to live. He was just at the spirit-severing stage. A year ago, he already didn't put the spirit-severing stage in his eyes. What's more, he had now reached the out-of-body stage. In fact, during this year, in the Hichu Luoshu world, it should be known that during this period of time, Hichu Luoshu had accelerated the flow of time, reaching 100 times. With Morong's aptitude, in 100 years, even if he didn't cultivate, he would have naturally broken through. If Morong hadn't cultivated, he wouldn't have just been at the out-of-body stage. He would have directly entered the crossing calamity stage, or even the transformation stage. Of course, Morong wouldn't let his strength progress quickly. In every realm, he had to consolidate his cultivation well. Only in this way could his future achievements be greater and greater. The conversation between the two immediately attracted the reaction of the nearby people. At this time, people discovered that there was actually a character on the Dragon Phoenix list among them. No matter which one of the existences on the Dragon Phoenix list, they all had terrifying strength. None of them had an undeserved reputation. Therefore, after discovering that someone was going to challenge Morong, these people no longer left, but continued to watch. That Wei Xing is an expert at the spirit-severing stage. Although that Morong is on the Dragon Phoenix list, he is only at the out-of-body stage. Do you think he will be Wei Xing's opponent? Someone said, the people on the list don't have an undeserved reputation. Although Morong is only at the out-of-body stage, don't forget that Morong is a moving treasure. There are many kinds of treasures. Let's see how he will kill this Wei Xing, someone said with a smile. Kill! Wei Xing roared. His figure rose into the air, turning into a stream of light, and rushed towards Morong. In the void, a punch was aimed at Morong's head, wanting to kill Morong in one fell swoop. Morong narrowed his eyes slightly. This Wei Xing was the first person to challenge his list. In that case, let's kill the chicken to warn the monkey. A cold light flashed between Morong's eyebrows. Since this kind of thing can happen once, it will happen a second time. And Morong is most afraid of these troubles. Although he has enough strength to deal with this kind of challenge, these challenges are really not challenging. For those who are not as strong as him, it is troublesome rather than a challenge. Therefore, this Wei Xing must die, and he must die in a very shocking manner. Only in this way can he deter the challengers who come one after another. Sneering in his heart, he didn't make any move. He just looked at the huge fist that was quickly bombarding him with an indifferent expression. Morong slowly raised his right hand. Just as Wei Xing's fist was about to reach him, Morong swiftly threw out a punch. Moreover, in order to not be able to kill Wei Xing in one fell swoop more than once, Morong's fist has been covered with black thunder and lightning. Boom! Two huge fists violently collided in the air. After a momentary pause, Wei Xing suddenly let out a scream. His fist had been shattered into powder under Murong Yu's bombardment, followed by his whole arm. At the same time, Murong Yu's fist had already hit Wei Xing's body. Boom! After a loud explosion, the black force suddenly shrouded Wei Xing's whole body. Then Wei Xing's whole body disappeared. Kill. One punch to kill. Not even dregs were left. Chapter 197. One punch. With just one punch, Wei Xing, who was at the spirit-severing stage, was killed. Not even dregs were left. In fact, Murong Yu didn't even unleash the power of the dragon. In an instant, everyone present was shocked and quieted down. All of them looked at Murong Yu with terrifying eyes. Previously, the battle between Hu Lin and Zhou Su, the two experts on the Dragon Phoenix list, was earth-shattering. It was very exciting. The battle between Murong Yu and Wei Xing couldn't even be called a battle. With just one punch, Wei Xing, who was at the spirit-severing stage, was killed. However, this kind of shock was even more intense than that of Hu Lin and Zhou Su. Although there was nothing outstanding about it, killing an expert who was one realm higher than him with one punch was absolutely shocking. Even Zhou Su and Hu Lin, who were ranked 90th and 91st on the Dragon Phoenix list, were shocked when they saw this scene. With their strength, it was naturally not difficult for them to kill Wei Xing, who was at the spirit-severing stage. However, it was impossible for them to kill Wei Xing until not even dregs were left. In fact, if it was just Murong Yu's vital essence, which was the power of chaos, it was impossible for him to create such an effect. Even if he killed Wei Xing with one punch, there would be broken arms and limbs, and flesh and blood flying everywhere. This was the terrifying power of the Black Tribulation Lightning. Of course, if Murong Yu didn't use the power of chaos, he could also create such an effect. That was to use the yin-yang fire of the yin-yang cauldron. A fire would definitely find Wei Xing until not even dregs were left. And this kind of shocking effect was exactly what Murong Yu needed. And it was also the final result that he wanted to create. Seeing that the people around him were shocked by him, Murong Yu was very satisfied. However, on the surface, his expression was indifferent. His eyes even emitted a sharp, cold light as he swept his gaze across the crowd. Whoever wants to challenge me, be prepared to be killed first. As he spoke, Murong Yu had already soared into the sky and flew towards Fallen Star City. No one spoke. They just watched as Murong Yu's figure quickly disappeared in front of them. After a long time, CK, as expected, none of the people on the Dragon Phoenix list are simple. Even Murong Yu, who's at the bottom of the list, is so frightening. Someone suddenly roared, shattering the silent atmosphere. That's right. Murong Yu might be in the out-of-body stage, but he's too powerful. In the past, I always thought that Murong Yu relied on the many treasures in his hands to get on the list. Now, it seems that's not the case. The description of Murong Yu on the Dragon Phoenix list was precisely because he had a large number of treasures. However, they did not know that Murong Yu's combat strength was actually very strong. In the past, it was only because his cultivation level was too low. As his cultivation level continued to rise, it would become easier and easier for him to kill more powerful experts. He was only at the revolving reflection stage, yet he was able to rely on various treasures to kill a crossing calamity stage expert like a dog. I wonder if the current Murong Yu can kill a transformation stage expert? Someone guessed. Why don't you let your sex transformation stage experts try? Someone laughed loudly. However, no matter what, there was no doubt about Murong Yu's strength. At this time, Murong Yu had already entered Meteor Fall City. After strolling around Meteor Fall City for half a day and enjoying the scenery of one of the 5 major cities in the cultivation world, Murong Yu headed towards the largest restaurant in Meteor Fall City, Meteor House. No matter where, restaurants were the most lively places. Not only could one obtain a lot of information for free here, but one could also eat to their heart's content. Therefore, every time Murong Yu went to a place, he would go there to taste the delicious food. As the saying goes, food is the most important thing for the people. Although Murong, you had already abstained from eating. Eating was a habit that he had developed for decades. Even if he no longer needed it, he still could not change it. You're going too far. On the way to Meteor House, Murong, you had just passed through a street when he saw a group of people in front of him. A voice filled with grief and indignation came from the crowd. Murong, you did not care about this at all, because this kind of thing happened all the time, whether it was in the secular world or the cultivation world. It was the same, even in Meteor Falls City. Furthermore, there were no restrictions in Meteor Falls City that prohibited fighting in the city. Other than those battles with great destructive power that were restricted, Meteor Falls City would not care about the rest of the small fights. Just as Murong Yu was about to pass through the crowd to Meteor House, he could not help but glance at the crowd. Then, he frowned slightly, turned around, and walked toward the crowd. This was because he saw an acquaintance. At this moment, that acquaintance seemed to be being bullied. Wu Feng was looking at the three people in front of him furiously. His eyes were spitting fire, as if he could not wait to rush up and kill the three of them. However, he also knew his own ability. He was only a small cultivator in the foundation establishment stage. How could he be a match for the three of them? He could not even tell their cultivation level. However, the other party was really too much. 1,000,000 recovery pills, or die. A young man stared coldly at Wu Feng as a strong, killing intent flashed in the depths of his eyes. You're going too far. You only took off an ordinary piece of clothing, and you actually want 1,000,000 recovery pills. You might as well rob me, Wu Feng said angrily. Wu Feng was Zhu Xinzong's disciple, and came to the legendary Meteor Falls City to experience the magnificence of one of the cultivation world's 5 great cities. However, he had not been in the city for long, and had only accidentally bumped into these 3 people. However, the 3 of them insisted that he had broken their high-grade treasure clothes. That was something worth 1,000,000 return origin pills. This was definitely a scam. Not to mention Wu Feng, it was simply impossible for the trash low-grade magic tool in his hand to break the high-grade magic tool armor. Moreover, as Wu Feng had said, the clothes on those 3 fellows were ordinary clothes, not even worth a single yuan returning pill. They were clearly trying to scam him. However, Wu Feng was wrong. These 3 bastards were not trying to scam him. Of course, they could see that Wu Feng did not have so many recovery pills. They were just framing Wu Feng for fun. In the cultivation world, one's life was much longer than an ordinary person's. If one did not enjoy themselves, their life would be too dull. Moreover, what Wu Feng did not know was that these 3 bastards were quite powerful in Meteor Falls City. What had happened to him had already happened countless times. Poor kid, you actually provoked these 3 bastards. You won't be able to keep your life. In the crowd, a cultivator who was more familiar with Meteor Falls City looked at Wu Feng sympathetically. Although the 3 of them were not very strong, there were 3 famous families in Meteor Falls City: Zhang, Su, and Zhu. Although these 3 families could only be considered as ordinary forces in the cultivation world, they were still very powerful. However, Meteor Falls City was their territory. Here, they were the local bullies. Even if other large sects were here, they would not dare to do anything to them. And these 3 bastards were the hedonistic sons of these 3 clans. It was common for them to act tyrannically here and bully the good people. Although Wu Feng was Zhu Xinzong's disciple, he was wearing the outer court disciple's uniform. Even if this kind of disciple was killed by them, Zhu Xinzong would not do anything to them. After all, the Void Sky sect would not shed all pretenses of cordiality with these 3 families over a mere foundation-building disciple. I'll give you 2 choices. Immediately take out 1,000,000 recovery pills, or kill yourself. Zhu Jie sneered. As a foundation establishment outer court disciple, Wu Feng could only receive 5 recovery pills from Zhu Xinzong every month. Although Murong, you gave him 10,000 recovery pills, where did he have 1,000,000 recovery pills? Even if he did, he would not give them to Zhu Jie and the others. This was clearly a scam. I don't have recovery pills, but I have 1 life. If you have the ability, then take my life. Wu Feng roared. Zhang Hong took a step forward, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. You said it yourself. It's not that I want to kill you for no reason. As he spoke, Zhang Hong suddenly stretched out his hand and slammed it down on Wu Feng. Zhang Hong was an out-of-body cultivator. Even 100 Wu Fengs would not be enough to kill him. However, his speed was not fast. He only released a powerful aura to suppress Wu Feng, just as he had expected. Although Wu Feng was not afraid of death, in the face of death, he also revealed an extremely terrified expression. Seeing the frightened expression on Wu Feng's face, Zhang Hong, Zhu Jie, and Su Li all laughed out loud. They did not know why, but every time they killed someone, they felt very happy. Just as Zhang Hong's hand was about to hit Wu Feng's head and kill him with one slap, chi, an almost inaudible sound of something breaking through the air suddenly spread out from the crowd. Then, a faint light flashed and disappeared. At this moment, Zhang Hong suddenly let out a horrifying scream of agony. As for the hand that he used to slap Wu Feng, it had been chopped off at some point in time. Puff! A cloud of blood mist suddenly sprayed out and sprayed on Wu Feng's head and face. Zhang Hong's severed hand had already fallen to the ground. What's going on? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned, including the 4 people involved. Which bastard cut off my hand? Zhang Hong roared with a ferocious expression. It was painful. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, several figures rose into the air from the nearby streets and rushed over. When one of them saw that Zhang Hong's hand was cut off, he could not help but open his eyes wide. Who is it? Who is it? A terrifying aura emanated from this middle-aged man, enveloping the void. Fierce killing intent filled the air. It was very terrifying. Chapter 198. He was Zhang Hong's guard. Although he disdained Zhang Hong in his heart, he was still his master. Now that his master's arm had been cut off, how was he going to explain this to his family? How could he not be angry? Kill them all! Kill them all! Zhang Hong roared, sweating profusely from the pain. Kill them all? Hearing Zhang Hong's words, the surrounding onlookers couldn't help but take a few steps back. Each and every one of them looked at Zhang Hong in horror. Of course, there were also many experts who sneered disdainfully. Zhang Yuan's brows furrowed slightly. Kill everyone here? Although this was Zhang Hong's order, Zhang Yuan couldn't do as he was told. After all, if it was just killing a few people, it would be fine with the Zhang family's power. However, if he killed dozens or even hundreds of people here, he would be courting death. If he offended the public, even the Zhang family would not be able to protect him. However, now that Zhang Hong's arm had been cut off, he did not seem to have a good time. With a cold face and a cold expression, Zhang Yuan, who was at the form synthesis stage, emitted a terrifying murderous intent from his eyes. Who is it? Come out! Zhang Yuan roared. Zhang Hong was furious. Zhang Yuan, you lowly servant. I told you to kill them all. Kill them all. How dare you disobey me? Zhang Yuan's face was very ugly. He did not dare to kill so many people. However, Zhang Hong's anger could not be quelled. At this time, Zhu Jie and Su Li finally came to their senses. However, each of them looked at the surrounding crowd with fear. The 2 of them were firmly protected by their guards. For a long time, they had relied on their guards and the power of their families to do whatever they wanted in Fallen Star City. They did not even dare to move, let alone have an arm cut off. After all, no one dared to provoke these 3 bullies. Most importantly, these 3 bastards were very smart and only bullied those who did not belong to the big forces. Even if they were disciples of the big forces, they were only people like Wu Feng. Therefore, when they saw Zhang Hong's miserable appearance, Zhu Jie and Su Li were stunned. However, in his heart, he was secretly feeling lucky. Fortunately, he was not the one who attacked. Otherwise, the one who lost his arm would not be Zhang Hong, but him. Wu Feng's head and face were covered in blood from Zhang Hong's severed hand. Such a scene caught him off guard and shocked him. He couldn't figure out who would help him. Wasn't he afraid of offending these 3 bastards? Zhang Yuan hesitated. He absolutely did not dare to make a move against these people. However, the person who had cut off Zhang Hong's arm did not appear. In the end, he could only slap Wu Feng. Since the other party had saved Wu Feng, as long as he attacked Wu Feng, the other party would attack him again. Cheat. Just as Zhang Yuan attacked Wu Feng, the void shattered, and a huge black fist tore through the void from the crowd. Bang! After an earth-shattering boom, the huge fist landed on the ground. A terrifying power fiercely exploded, and immediately, Zhang Yuan's big hand was smashed into pieces. At the same time, a figure slowly walked out from the crowd. With a black long spear on his back, he looked indifferent and murderous as he looked at Zhang Hong and the others. Indescribable killing intent filled the air. The terrifying murderous intent caused the surrounding air to turn cold, forcing the surrounding people to continuously retreat. It's you, Zhang Yuan, especially Zhang Hong, looked at Mu Rongyu with incomparable hatred. If looks could kill, Mu Rongyu would have been cut into pieces countless times by Zhang Hong. Boss Mu Rong, is that you? A surprised voice came from Wu Feng. When he saw Mu Rongyu, Wu Feng was excited. Now, Mu Rongyu was an expert ranked 100th on the Dragon Phoenix list. Moreover, when he joined Zhushenzong, he had already known Wu Feng. Therefore, Wu Feng had always regarded Mu Rongyu as his idol. In his heart, he had always admired Mu Rongyu. This time, Wu Feng left the sect to train outside. One of the reasons was to meet Mu Rongyu again. Mu Rongyu's gift to him was still fresh in Wu Feng's mind. However, he had not had time to repay the kindness of that day. And now, something like this had happened. This really made Wu Feng feel very depressed. It was actually Boss Mu Rong who saved him. Wu Feng was very excited. Mu Rongyu nodded at Wu Feng, then looked at Zhang Hong and the others in front of him. His eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. It's you. Kill. Seeing the main character appear, Zhang Yuan immediately let out a low growl and pounced toward Mu Rongyu. He did not dare to kill the surrounding people, but it did not mean that he did not dare to kill Mu Rongyu. He had done this kind of thing many times. You're courting death. When he was watching, Mu Rongyu had already seen how bastardly Zhang Hong and the others could be. Seeing that Zhang Yuan dared to attack him, Mu Rongyu's killing intent was immediately ignited. He was just a cultivator in the form synthesis stage. Mu Rongyu did not care about him at all. He shouted coldly and reached out his hand to take out the phoenix spear on his back. With a shake of his hand, the phoenix spear exploded with a black divine light that shot into the sky. A terrifying aura immediately emanated from the spear, terrifying to the soul. Black lightning flashed on the spear, and a terrifying pressure emanated from it. Die! The spear shook and immediately turned into a black divine dragon. With a roar, it tore through the void, shattered billions of space-time, and pierced toward Zhang Yuan's fist. Bang! The spear and the fist collided violently. Time stopped at this moment. Then, everyone saw that Zhang Yuan's fist, which had collided with the spear, was shattered in an instant. The spear only stopped him for a moment, and then it continued to penetrate. Everywhere it passed, Zhang Yuan's entire arm was quickly shattered by the terrifying power of the spear. Ah! At this moment, Zhang Yuan let out a shrill scream. At this moment, the spear had already pierced into Zhang Yuan's body. With a shake of the spear, the black lightning on the spear suddenly exploded and instantly annihilated Zhang Yuan. The Black Tribulation Thunder was the most powerful attack in the world. Although Zhang Yuan had reached the form synthesis stage, his physical body was not even at the level of a high-grade magic weapon. How could he resist the power of the Black Tribulation Thunder? Bang! After an explosion, Zhang Yuan did not even have time to scream before he was blasted into nothingness by the Black Tribulation Thunder. Shocking. Seeing this scene, the onlookers were shocked. However, compared to the shocked onlookers, Zhang Hong and the other two, especially Zhang Hong, were extremely terrified. At this moment, Zhang Hong's broken arm had stopped bleeding. Seeing Mu Rongyu walking towards him with a murderous aura, Zhang Hong kept retreating, his eyes full of fear. Don't come over. You can't kill me. I'm a disciple of the Zhang family. Zhang Hong shouted angrily, trying to use the power of his family to suppress Murongyu. The Zhang family? Murongyu did not stop and continued to walk slowly toward Zhanghong. Yes, the Zhang family, one of the 3 big families in Fallen Star City. If you let me go, I promise that the Zhang family will not only not pursue the matter, but also give you a lot of benefits. Seeing Murongyu's expression, Zhang Hong felt that he had a chance and immediately said loudly. However, he was extremely resentful in his heart. Humph, as long as I return to the family, both of you will die. All of you will die. None of you will be left alive. Murongyu did not miss the flash of resentment in Zhang Hong's eyes. Moreover, Murongyu had never thought of letting the Zhang family go. The Zhang family? What the hell? Murongyu, am not even afraid of the 10 great sects. Why would I be afraid of your little Zhang family? You really don't know what you're talking about. Murongyu sneered and suddenly stretched out his hand. Although he was in the same realm as Murongyu, he had reached the out-of-body stage. However, Zhang Hong did not even have the strength to fight back in front of Murongyu. He was immediately restrained by Murongyu, and after sealing his strength, he was thrown to Wu Feng's feet. Murongyu ignored the hatred, resentment, and fear of Zhu Jie and Su Li and said to Wu Feng, "This person wanted to kill you just now. I'll leave him to you now." Zhang Hong looked at Wu Feng ferociously and said, "If you dare to kill me, you will not leave Fallen Star City." Damn you, you're about to die and you're still talking nonsense. Go to hell. Who knew that Wu Feng was also a ruthless person? The reason why he did not dare to make a move before was because he was not strong enough. Now that he saw a person who did not even have the strength to fight back threaten him, Wu Feng could not help but be angry. He shouted and slashed down with a long sword in his hand. Pooh! Blood splattered and soared into the sky. A huge head soared into the sky. Zhang Hong's head was cut off by Wu Feng. Seeing Wu Feng's courage and ruthlessness, Murongyu could not help but nod his head. If this guy did not even dare to kill Zhang Hong, Murongyu would have turned around and left. What was the use of having such a coward? How should we deal with the 2 of them? Murongyu pointed at Zhu Jie and Su Li and asked indifferently. They must all die. After killing one person, Wu Feng did not feel any lingering fear. On the contrary, his killing intent soared. This was because the 3 of them had insulted him and even wanted to kill him. If not for Murongyu's timely rescue, the one who would have died would not have been Zhang Hong, but Wu Feng. Very well, then I will take them down. Murongyu's face was indifferent as he walked towards Zhu Jie and Su Li. Murongyu, you have already killed Zhang Hong and offended the Zhang clan. Are you going to offend the Zhu clan and Su clan as well? The 2 guards stood in front of their masters and looked at Murongyu with gloomy faces. If you don't want to die, then scram, Murongyu shouted coldly. He did not put them in his eyes at all. You are courting death. The 2 guards were cultivators at the form synthesis stage. Although Murongyu had killed Zhang Yuan, who was at the same stage as him, with a single strike, they had no way out. With a roar, the 2 of them burst out with their maximum strength and rushed towards Murongyu. Murongyu just calmly looked at the 2 people rushing towards him with a look of disdain. He did not move. Your opponent is me, Yi Zichen said. At this moment, an angry roar came from the crowd. Then 2 figures soared into the sky and stopped the 2 guards. Chapter 199. A man and a woman came out of the crowd. They were Zhang Ao and Yang Man. In fact, after discovering Wu Feng, Murongyu had already released Zhang Ao and Yang Man from the Hichu Luoshu world and hid in the crowd. Therefore, when the guards of the Zhu and Su families were about to fight against Murongyu, Zhang Ao and Yang Man immediately rushed out and stopped the 2 people. Although these 2 bodyguards of the body integration stage were not in Murongyu's eyes, it would take some time. However, killing them would take some time, and the most important one was Wu Feng. If the time was delayed too much, the people of these 3 families would be attracted. At that time, they would not be able to kill Zhu Jie and Su Li. Although Zhu Jie and Su Li's bodyguards were both body integration stage cultivators, The strongest one was only at the mid-body integration stage. After all, these three bastards had always been in Meteor City. Who dared to touch them? The bodyguards beside them were only following them symbolically. Zhang Ao and Yang Man were both at the peak of the body integration stage. Moreover, in the Hichu Luoshu world, using the tribulation thunder to refine their bodies had made their bodies very strong. Although they did not have the abnormal strength of Murongyu, they still had the strength to challenge those of a higher level. Not to mention dealing with two people who were weaker than them. Their first move was their strongest attack. Zhang Ao did not care who the other party was. His purpose was to kill. Against a person who was one stage higher than him and who knew how many times stronger, the Su family's bodyguard did not even have the strength to resist. Pooh! A sword light tore through the air, and a huge head flew high into the air. With a slash of the sword, the Su family's bodyguard was directly beheaded. As for Yang Man, she was still fighting. With Yang Man's strength, she could have easily killed the Zhu family's bodyguard. However, Yang Man was not as ruthless as Zhang Ao. With a cold snort, Zhang Ao held a flying sword of the spirit to a level and rushed forward, slashing with his sword. Pooh! The Zhu family's bodyguard did not even have time to scream before he was cut into two by Zhang Ao's sword. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people were still in shock and had yet to react. After killing the two, Zhang Ao's expression did not change as he strode forward. He walked in front of Zhu Jie and Su Li, the two bastards. He gave each of them a big slap. Then, he grabbed each of them like they were chickens and threw them at Murongyu's feet. At this time, Zhu Jie and Su Li were still dizzy and almost fainted from fright. Don't kill me. My family will give you whatever you want. You can't kill me. Su Li looked at Murongyu in fear. He knew that Murongyu was the leader of these people. A disdainful smile appeared on Murongyu's face. Apart from relying on their clans to intimidate others and bully others, what else could they do? Without the families behind them, they were just a pile of trash. Wu Feng, I'll leave them to you, Murongyu said with a cold smile. Wu Feng licked his lips and ran up excitedly. Then, the flying sword in his hand flew up. In the next moment, two heads flew up. From then on, Meteor City would have three less domineering bastards. Seeing Murongyu directly kill the three bastards from the three clans, the crowd was shocked. Although they were shocked, they were also happy. After all, these three bastards were dead, and they would not be bullied by them in the future. The Zhang family should be here soon. You'd better leave quickly. At this time, someone in the crowd reminded them. Murongyu looked over and nodded. Then, he led Wu Feng and Zhang Ao in the direction of Fallen Star's tower. As for the three clans of the Zhang family, so what if they were local bullies? Murongyu did not take them seriously at all. Therefore, they did not leave Fallen Star City. Instead, they walked slowly towards Fallen Star's tower. Not long after they left, a few figures rushed over quickly. When they saw the corpses lying on the ground, these people were shocked. Someone actually killed the people of their clans here. These people were immediately furious. Soon, they spread the news back to their clans. After knowing this, the three clans were instantly enraged. Although they had heard of the three bastards' actions, they had turned a blind eye to it. However, he had been killed today, killing my people on my turf. They were really courting death. With their ability, they quickly found out the whole story. As a result, countless experts from the three great families flew towards the Falling Star Tower in a grandiose manner, intending to capture and kill Murongyu. At this time, Murongyu and the other three had already taken their seats on the third floor of Fallen Star's tower. Murongyu looked at the menu in his hand with a pained expression. Damn it, was this the menu? An ordinary dish cost 10,000 recovery pills, and a jar of wine was even more expensive. It actually cost 50,000 recovery pills. They were not here to eat, but to eat recovery pills. These dishes were useless after eating, but recovery pills could at least replenish their true core force. However, although Murongyu was pained, he still ordered a table full of dishes. There were all kinds of dishes. Anyway, he was rich now. Yes, he was not short of money. When the experts of the three clans arrived at Fallen Star's tower, Morong Yu and the other three were eating and drinking to their heart's content. In particular, the two bastards, Wu Feng and Zhang Ao, were like the reincarnation of hungry ghosts. They swept through almost half of the dishes on the table like a hurricane. Morong Yu, get out here! At this moment, an angry shout came from the front of Fallen Star's tower. Morong Yu. Hearing that angry shout, everyone on the third floor of Blessed Gathering Tower looked at each other. Although not many people had seen Morong Yu before, Morong Yu's name had long been known in the cultivation world. Not to mention his previous feats, he was now a person on the Dragon Phoenix list, although he was last. But he was still a person on the list, wasn't he? Leader, I'll go take care of them. Zhang Ao wiped his mouth, then stood up and was about to fly out. You're not their match. However, Morong Yu's next words caused Zhang Ao's body to stop moving. Since that's the case, I'll just continue eating. After saying that, Zhang Ao once again buried his head in the food. As the captain of the Azure Dragon Squad, Zhang Ao naturally knew about Morong Yu. Although he did not know about Hichu Luo Shu, he knew that Morong Yu would be fine. This bastard. Morong Yu was speechless. This guy was really straightforward. He really did not have the slightest awareness of being a subordinate. Boss Morong, you should be fine, right? Wu Feng looked at Morong Yu with a worried expression. Although Morong Yu was a person on the Dragon Phoenix list, he was only one person after all. But the opponents were three clans, three local tyrants. How could they fight? I'm fine. Eat your food. Morong Yu waved his hand indifferently. A cold light flashed in the depths of his eyes. These three clans, others might not dare to do anything to them, but as for him, maybe I should prepare a big gift for them. Morong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Morong Yu, get out here. The experts of the Zhang, Zhu, and Su families surrounded the Starfall Tower from afar, but they did not dare to charge in. Although they were the tyrants of Starfall City, the true rulers of Starfall City were not the three clans. The City Lord of Starfall City. The City Lord of Starfall City was the true ruler of Starfall City. It was an extremely powerful force. Even if the three clans worked together, they would not be a match for them. And the Starfall Tower was obviously the property of the City Lord. Although the three clans were domineering in Starfall City, they also secretly targeted the City Lord. They wanted to get rid of the City Lord so that they could truly control Starfall City. However, at least on the surface, the four forces did not shed all pretense of cordiality. If they dared to charge into the Starfall Tower now, it would undoubtedly be a direct conflict with the City Lord. They were still not a match for the City Lord now. Therefore, they did not dare to charge into the Starfall Tower directly. What if that person was sitting somewhere else? They would probably tear down the entire restaurant. You guys continue. I'll go out and take a look. Morong Yu said, then got up and went downstairs, slowly walking out. However, how could Zhang Ao and the other two still dare to eat here? One by one, they followed Morong Yu down. Which dog is barking here? Morong Yu walked out and saw dozens of murderous people standing in front of the Starfall Tower. Seeing Morong Yu walk out, the three clans all looked over with murderous intent. You're Morong Yu? A middle-aged man strode out and looked at Morong Yu with murderous intent. You're the one barking? Morong Yu frowned and asked instead of answering. You're courting death. Zhang Yin was instantly enraged. This guy not only killed people from his clan, but also humiliated him. Zhang Yang roared furiously as he abruptly took one step forward. Bang! With a single step, the ground crumbled, and a series of terrifying cracks appeared on the extremely sturdy street. The cracks spread wildly in all directions. However, Zhang Yin had already transformed into a stream of light and rushed toward Morong Yu. In the process, he reached out his big hand and clawed at Morong Yu. Let me do it. With a low growl, Zhang Ao took a step forward and stood in front of Morong Yu. At the same time, Zhang Ao instantly increased his strength to the limit. The phantom of 50 horned dragons hovered above his head. The strength of 50 horned dragons. It was still the strength of dragons, of an ordinary cultivator at the crossing calamity stage. Although Zhang Ao's physical body was getting stronger day by day, his strength of dragons had also surpassed the form synthesis stage. Holding the sword with both hands, he poured his strength into the flying sword of the spiritual weapon level. With a furious roar, he slashed his sword towards Zhang Yang, who was rushing towards him. Boom! A huge sword light rushed out of the long sword, tearing a huge crack in the void with a terrifying pressure. Then, it slashed toward Zhang Yan as fast as a thunderbolt. Chapter 200. Get out of here! Seeing the huge sword light that was tearing the sky apart, Zhang Yan just roared angrily and fiercely punched out, fiercely colliding with the huge sword light. Boom! The powerful and terrifying forces of both sides collided violently, and then exploded violently. After an earth-shattering explosion, the sword light that Zhang Ao slashed out with a kacha sound actually already exploded into pieces. Although Zhang Yan's huge fist didn't shatter, it was weakened. However, it was obvious that Zhang Yan was stronger than Zhang Ao. Zhang Ao's body shook when the sword radiance was shattered. With a muffled groan, he crushed the ground with his foot and borrowed the force to soar into the air. In the air, he clenched the spirit artifact grade flying sword with both hands and slashed down. The shocking sword radiance tore through the air and directly shattered the huge fist formed by Zhang Yan's power. Then, Zhang Ao turned into a stream of light and rushed toward Zhang Yan. Zhang Yan revealed a disdainful look as he flashed and disappeared from his original place. Teleportation. It was a divine power that could only be mastered by cultivators in the crossing calamity stage. When Zhang Yang reappeared, he was already behind Zhang Ao. Then, he punched at Zhang Ao's back. Zhang Ao snorted and slashed with his sword. Bang! With a loud sound, Zhang Ao was hit hard and a terrifying force rushed into his body from the long sword in his hand. He was instantly sent flying. As for Zhang Yan, he was forced to take a few steps back by Zhang Ao's sword. Kill! Zhang Ao let out a low growl and pounced forward again. On the other side, Zhang Yan's face became serious. His realm was higher than Zhang Ao's. Moreover, he could teleport. He thought it would be easy to kill Zhang Ao, but Zhang Ao's strength was beyond his expectation. Although Zhang Ao's strength was not as good as his body seemed to be very strong. Bang! 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 The two of them separated as soon as they came into contact, and a great battle broke out. Hiss! With his strong body, Zhang Ao wouldn't be defeated for a while even though he was suppressed by Zhang Yan. However, it was impossible for Zhang Yan to kill him. All of a sudden, Zhang Ao's true essence force began to flicker with traces of electric light. As he slashed out with his sword, the huge sword light contained traces of electricity, and a terrifying pressure was emitted. Rumble! Zhang Yang once again shattered Zhang Ao's sword light with his fist. In front of him, Zhang Ao's attacks couldn't hurt him at all. However, with this attack, a surge of electric current gushed into his arm from the sword light and quickly spread throughout his entire body. Zhang Yang started to quiver all over. His entire body was surrounded by a layer of lightning. Zhang Yang felt them all over. At this moment, Zhang Yang felt them all over his body. His clothes had already been reduced to ashes under the ravaging of the lightning. The hair on the top of his head stood up ferociously, looking extremely terrifying. At this moment, Zhang Yan's hair was standing on end, and his whole body was surrounded by electric light. His body was emitting bursts of meat fragrance. Not only was lightning extremely ferocious, it also had a paralyzing effect. At this moment, a surge of lightning energy was wreaking havoc in Zhang Yan's body, trying to crush his meridians and even his body. As for him, he was paralyzed by the lightning and stopped in midair. Good chance! Zhang Ao roared and jumped up high. He held the spiritual weapon level flying sword tightly with both hands and poured the power of 50 horned dragons into the long sword in his hand. Then he slashed down at Zhang Yan. Puff! Seeing Zhang Ao's shocking slash, Zhang Yan suddenly opened his eyes wide in horror. At this moment, he wanted to escape, but his whole body was paralyzed by the lightning, and he couldn't escape at all. Blood splattered everywhere, like a divine weapon descending from the sky. Zhang Ao's long sword directly slashed down from Zhang Yan's head to the ground. It directly split Zhang Yan into two halves. It was so fast that the experts from the three families didn't even have time to react. Bang! Bang! Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. What lingered in their minds for a long time was Zhang Ao's shocking slash. It wasn't until the sound of Zhang Yan's body falling to the ground that everyone came to their senses. A crossing calamity stage cultivator was killed just like that. The onlookers looked at Zhang Ao with strange eyes. However, an expert from the Zhang family roared and rushed toward Zhang Ao. Zhang Ao's face was a little pale. After the round of battle, just now, he had used up too much of his strength. At this time, he couldn't resist the attack of the Zhang family's expert. "You're courting death," Morong Yu shouted coldly. His body swayed, and he had already rushed up with the troop formula. During this process, Morong Yu quickly punched out. Bang! At this moment, a very strange aura appeared in everyone's heart. At this moment, the world seemed to have become extremely hot and also extremely cold. This feeling only appeared for a moment. Everyone didn't even realize that they had felt these two extreme forces before. At this moment, Morong Yu and the expert from the Zhang family were still colliding fiercely. As if he had been hit by a heavy blow, Morong Yu's whole body suddenly flew backward like a kite with a broken string. After all, Morong Yu was just an out-of-body stage cultivator, while the expert from the Zhang family was a crossing calamity stage powerhouse. They were not at the same level at all. Morong Yu was blown away, which was expected by everyone. However, after Morong Yu was blown away, the expert from the Zhang family uttered a shrill scream. Everyone suddenly felt strange. This guy had already sent Morong Yu flying with a punch. Why was he still screaming? Could it be that Morong Yu had injured him? Morong Yu, what kind of magic did you use? The expert from the Zhang family who was fighting with Morong Yu looked at Morong Yu with a livid face at this time. However, he didn't dare to chase after him. Everyone looked over and saw that this guy's hand that had collided with Morong Yu had disappeared without trace. Yes, it had disappeared without a trace. It wasn't cut off by someone, because no one had found his broken arm. However, his originally good right arm had disappeared at this time. Only half of it was left. Hearing this guy's angry and shrill roar, everyone finally understood why this guy was screaming. As it turned out, Morong Yu was the one who had caused his right arm to disappear. With the strength of Morong Yu's body, although the Zhang family's expert had blown him away, he couldn't hurt him at all. At this time, he had already flown back leisurely. Hearing the words of the Zhang family's expert, Morong Yu's face showed a disdainful expression. "Your skills are inferior. What are you screaming for? Do you believe that I won't beat your head off?" Hearing this, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. And the Zhang family's expert who was clamoring actually shut up at this time. He was frightened, because he really didn't know how Morong Yu had beaten his right hand. With Morong Yu's strength, it was impossible for him to crush his arm silently. Even if it was crushed, there would be some traces, right? In this regard, except for Morong Yu, no one else had noticed. In fact, the aura of extreme cold and extreme heat that those people vaguely felt just now was not their illusion. It was Morong Yu who had taken out the yin-yang cauldron. Yin-yang fire, extreme cold, and extreme heat. It had a terrifying power that was not inferior to the Black Tribulation thunder. Moreover, for Morong Yu at this stage, the yin-yang fire was more terrifying than the Black Tribulation thunder. At the moment when he made his move, Morong Yu took out the yin-yang cauldron in his palm. At the moment when the fists of both sides collided, the yin-yang fire suddenly erupted and directly burned half of the Zhang family's expert's arm. Of course, after that, Morong Yu only knew about it. He would not say it out loud. This was one of his trump cards. If you want to fight, then fight. What's the nonsense? If not, we'll go back. Murong Yu's indifferent eyes swept over the people of the three families one by one. Meeting Murong Yu's eyes, these people couldn't help but shiver in their hearts. This guy was really too strange. Fight with him? Maybe they would suddenly disappear at any time. At this time, Zhang Ao had completely recovered after swallowing a large number of energy recovery pills. He walked over and stood together with Murong Yu, looking coldly at the Zhang family and the others. Because of Murong Yu's strangeness, the experts of the three families were frightened. However, after all, the three families were used to being tyrannical in Fallen Star City. Although no one dared to make a move, they did not disperse. It seems that the deterrence is not enough. Murong Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light flashed across his eyebrows. You're just a small ant in the out-of-body stage, relying on strange means to scare people. I don't believe you can do anything. At this time, on the Su family side, a young man walked out of the crowd. He looked at Murong Yu and sneered with a disdainful look. This idiot. Murong Yu's eyes flashed coldly. Although he's only in the spirit-severing stage, it should be enough to make a show of strength. You come out, I'm going to kill you. The young man pointed at Murong Yu and said disdainfully. Zhang Ao was about to make a move, but he was stopped by Murong Yu. He walked out, looked at the young man, and said with a smile on his face, You really want to kill me? The young man looked at Murong Yu as if he was looking at an idiot. His meaning was obvious. But I want to tell you that I've killed everyone who wants to kill me. Are you sure you want to kill me? Murong Yu smiled as if he was talking to a friend. The young man was furious. I'd like to see what ability you have to make it to the 100th place on the Dragon Phoenix list. As he spoke, the young man had already rushed over. In the process, he had already slashed his sword at Murong Yu. The sword chi soared into the sky, as if the void was being torn apart by this terrifying sword chi. It was very terrifying. On the other hand, Murong Yu merely smiled faintly and pointed at the youth. Boom! The moment Murong Yu pointed at the young man, a black lightning as thick as a bucket appeared in the void above the young man's head. Chapter 201. A bolt of black lightning as thick as a bucket appeared above the young man's head. At the same time, an intimidating aura came crashing down from the sky, shaking the heavens and the earth. Boom! An explosion was heard, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt. The black lightning tore through the void and struck the young man fiercely. Feeling the terrifying aura coming from above his head, the young man felt an aura of death rising from the bottom of his heart. Immediately, he raised his head and looked up. Suddenly, a gigantic bolt of black lightning struck down fiercely with the aura of death. At this moment, the young man was horrified. He immediately raised his strength to the limit and tried to escape into the distance in an attempt to avoid the terrifying black lightning. However, although the young man's reaction was not slow, the black lightning was faster. Just as the young man's heart skipped a beat, the black lightning had already struck the young man's body. Just as everyone's eardrums were hurting, they saw another shocking scene. The black lightning struck the young man's body fiercely. Bang! The young man did not even have time to react before he was struck by the black lightning and turned into fine powder, disappearing from the world. Even after the young man was turned into fine powder, the black lightning did not disappear. It continued to strike down fiercely, creating a huge hole in the extremely hard street. A soul-stirring pressure spread far and wide, causing everyone's souls to tremble. Seeing this scene, everyone who saw it felt fear in their hearts. This black lightning actually had such terrifying power? It was too terrifying. Even the cultivators at the tribulation stage were terrified when they saw the power of the black lightning. After all, the heavenly lightning was the most terrifying power of all cultivators. You're courting death. Murong Yu ignored everyone's stunned expressions and clapped his hands disdainfully. His disdainful voice woke everyone up from their stupor. Could it be that the black lightning was summoned by Murong Yu? If that's really the case, then it's truly too frightening. Someone thought to himself as they looked at Murong Yu with eyes filled with fear. Even the cultivators that were close to Murong Yu's group involuntarily retreated far away, as if they were afraid of being struck by the black tribulation lightning again. As for the three families of the Zhang clan, they all looked at Murong Yu with ashen faces. Want to fight? But no one dared to. Leave just like that? The reputation of the three great clans could not be lost. Come, let's go back. Seeing that the three families were frightened by him, Murong Yu turned to leave. Wait! Just as Murong Yu was about to leave, someone from the three families shouted. Obviously, they did not want Murong Yu to leave just like that. Murong Yu's face instantly darkened as he turned to look at the three great families with a murderous aura. Murong Yu, you killed people from the three families, and you want to leave just like that? If you don't give us a satisfactory explanation today, you don't have to leave. Explanation? Do I need to give you an explanation for killing people? Moreover, so what if it was people from the three families? If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll kill you too. Murong Yu's eyes flashed coldly, and his body was full of killing intent. Meeting Murong Yu's gaze, the people from the three families could not help but take a step back. What bullsh***, three families. I've never cared about them. Today, I'll say it. I'm in Fallen Star City. If you people from the three families have the ability, then come and take my life. But I'm warning you, before you kill me, you'd better prepare for your death. I only care about killing, not burying. Murong Yu's voice was cold, and his killing intent spread out. His whole person was like a killing god. After speaking, he did not care about the people from the three families and turned to leave. The people from the three families looked at each other. They wanted to keep Murong Yu, but they were not Murong Yu's opponent. They were shocked by Murong Yu's several methods. However, if they were to let Murong Yu go just like that, all three of their families would lose face. Once this matter spread out, the people from the three families would definitely be ridiculed. But they did not dare to make a move. Leave a few people to monitor Murong Yu's whereabouts. We'll go back and ask the family's experts to deal with this bastard. An expert from the Su family said with a gloomy face. Murong Yu's methods were too strange. Ordinary crossing calamity stage cultivators might not be his opponents. Then, they could only ask the experts in the transformation stage to take action. However, there were not many transformation stage cultivators in the entire cultivation world. Although the three families also had transformation stage cultivators, these people had been cultivating in seclusion. If there was no big matter, they would not appear. After all, after entering the transformation stage, they might not be able to appear. Every minute was very precious to them. If they could not completely transform their bodies into immortal bodies in their limited time, then they could only wait for their lifespan to run out and die. Is this Murong Yu, who is ranked 100th on the Dragon Phoenix list? The onlookers were not the only ones who witnessed this matter. Countless people nearby were watching this matter. Among them, there was no lack of experts on the Dragon Phoenix list. This Murong Yu shouldn't be as simple as being ranked 100th. At a window on the third floor of the Falling Star Tower, a woman in white with a white veil covering her face looked at Murong Yu on the street. After witnessing the whole process, the veiled woman could not help but sigh. There were many people who had the same thoughts as the veiled woman. Legend had it that Murong Yu's strength was not very strong. The reason why he could be on the Dragon Phoenix list was entirely because he had many treasures on him. But from the looks of it, Murong Yu's strength was even more terrifying. The ability to control lightning could make the arm of a cultivator in the tribulation stage disappear into thin air. In addition to the many treasures on him, Murong Yu's combat strength was much stronger than many young experts on the Dragon Phoenix list. However, it seemed that from now on, no one had forced Murong Yu to reveal all his trump cards. In fact, as long as Murong Yu was willing, there was no such person in the cultivation world. At least, there was no one. He's just relying on strange methods. As long as I'm prepared in advance, what can he do to me? Hearing the goddess in his heart praise Murong Yu, a young man next to the woman in white revealed a trace of malice in his eyes. Then, he said disdainfully, "That's right. No matter how powerful Murong Yu is, he's just a small, out-of-body cultivator. Can he turn the world upside down? Someone immediately chimed in with a tone full of disdain. That's right. With his strength, how can he be on the Dragon Phoenix list? I don't know how this list is taken. The surrounding handsome young men all revealed disdainful expressions. In fact, these people were not speaking empty words. If someone knew them, they would find that these young elites were all on the Dragon Phoenix list. Moreover, their rankings were not as low as Murong Yu's. Each of them was ranked in the top dozens. With their strength, they were naturally qualified to say that about Murong Yu. However, was Murong Yu really so unbearable? The woman in white had a calm look in her eyes. She did not comment on these comments. However, her eyebrows still furrowed slightly. Although these people were all young elites on the Dragon Phoenix list, ever since she appeared, they had surrounded her. How could she not know the intentions of these people? However, with her personality, it was not good for her to directly drive these people away. Young Master Murong, our young miss invites you. Just as Murong Yu stepped onto the third floor of the Falling Star Tower, a young woman walked over and said respectfully to Murong Yu. Seeing this woman, Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a light. This woman looked to be about 17 or 19 years old, but she was already at the spirit-severing stage. Most importantly, this woman looked delicate and charming. She exuded a seductive vixen aura. This was not a cultivation technique, but completely from her body. She was only a servant girl, but her beauty was also top-notch. In particular, that faint foxy charm added to her limitless charm, causing people's hearts to become restless. Your young miss. Do I know her? Murong Yu could not help but frown slightly. Hee. If young master goes over, won't you know her? I'll have to trouble young master to go over. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain to young miss, the young woman said with a smile. Who was it? Even the servant girl was so beautiful and charming. Then she should also be a peerless beauty, right? A beauty inviting him? There was no reason to refuse. Okay, I'll go with you. Murong Yu smiled slightly. The young woman faintly smiled, causing one's heart to stir. Then, she walked over with Murong Yu. In fact, in addition to the main hall, there were countless private rooms in the Meteor Tower. As for the young woman, she led Murong Yu into a private room. As soon as he stepped into the private room, Murong Yu saw a woman in green with her back facing them, looking out the window. At the same time, a delicate fragrance assailed his nose. Although he did not see the woman's appearance, just her back was already graceful and had an excellent figure. Young miss, I have invited young Master Murong. The servant girl stepped forward and said. Hearing this, the green-clothed woman slowly turned around. When he saw the green-clothed woman's appearance, Murong Yu was instantly stunned. Beautiful, stunning. In an instant, only these two words appeared in Murong Yu's mind, and there were no other words. She was about 20 years old, with an extremely beautiful face and a pair of big watery eyes. She was extremely moving. Murong Yu was instantly stunned, but it was only for a moment, and he quickly calmed down. How to say it? Although this woman was extremely beautiful, she was about the same as Zhao Jiqing. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.